Chapter 29:14. 500 Immortal Crystals to buy the immortal stones from the God-Burial Abyss Old Mine. You've made a huge profit, but I've made a huge loss. The old man with the goatee mumbled as he reluctantly handed the immortal stone to Ling Xiao. With this lousy immortal stone, I think you've already made a fortune with just one immortal crystal. You still think that 500 immortal crystals are too little? If you don't want to, then forget it. We won't buy it. The heaven-devouring rat said in annoyance. He really could not tell what was so special about the immortal stone that Ling Xiao had chosen. As for the immortal stone in the God-Burial Abyss, that was even more nonsense. He did not believe it at all. How should I address you? Ling Xiao gave the old man 500 immortal crystals, then put the immortal stone into his pouch and smiled at him. Although this old man with a goatee only looked like an immortal, Ling Xiao instinctively felt that he was not simple. Perhaps he had really obtained this strange immortal stone from the God-Burial Abyss. Ling Xiao learned from the heaven-devouring rat that the God-Burial Abyss was a forbidden area in the immortal world. Legend had it that countless ancient fiend gods were buried there and countless immortal stones were nurtured there. Although it was filled with danger, the quality of the immortal stones was extremely high. For example, the Shi clan had once obtained the precious immortal stone from the God-Burial Abyss. From it, they had obtained the ancient Imperial Sutra and the extreme Tao Emperor weapon. This had shaken the entire immortal world and established the Shi clan's foundation. Countless people had headed to the God-Burial Abyss to mine the immortal stone. Therefore, the immortal stones in the God-Burial Abyss had become synonymous with supreme-grade immortal stones. However, the God-Burial Abyss was fraught with danger. It was very difficult for ordinary people to mine immortal stones from the God-Burial Abyss. Instead, they would suffer heavy casualties. Most of the immortal stones in the God-Burial Abyss on the market were fake. I am Taoist Divine Void. I think you're not bad, so I'll give you a piece of news. If you want to open a stone, it's best to look for the Xie family's stone cutter. Don't look for the Shi family's stone cutter. The Shi family is used to being overbearing. If there's really something good inside, they might do something like forcing people to buy and sell. The old man with the goatee smiled. Do I need you to tell me that? Heaven-devouring rat rolled his eyes. This Taoist divine void was speaking nonsense. In the entire ancient immortal city, who didn't know just how overbearing the Shi family was? Thank you, elder. Ling Xiao nodded and said. He really wanted to find a stone cutter to open the immortal stone in his hand. That piece of ceramic could cause the God Clan's seal to react, which made Ling Xiao attach great importance to it. On both sides of the street, there were stone-cutting pavilions. Ling Xiao and the sky-devouring rat did not hesitate and directly chose the Jie family's stone-cutting pavilion. The business in the stone-cutting pavilion was very hot. The stone-cutting masters were holding immortal stones and carefully breaking the stone skin. There were many people around watching. The stone-cutting process was also the most exciting process. From time to time, there would be people screaming or sighing. However, the cost of stone cutting was not low. Ordinary immortal stones required at least one immortal crystal. As for high-quality immortal stones, even divine jade immortal fetus, the cost of stone cutting could reach hundreds or even tens of thousands of immortal crystals. Stone cutting is a technical job that involves the chaotic great Tao of heaven and earth contained in the immortal stone. Only the Jie family and the Shi family can completely cut the stone. The heaven-devouring rat sighed and said enviously. Not only the heaven-devouring rat, who would not be envious of the Jie family and the Shi family. However, the stone-cutting technique of the Jie family and the Shi family was also known as the stone-cutting heavenly scripture. Only the members of the Jie family and the Shi family could cultivate it. Only they could cut the stone without damaging the treasures in the immortal stone. The immortal stone was very strange. The stone's skin on the outside was intertwined with divine Tao Qi and immortal Tao Qi. It also contained chaotic great Tao precepts. If the stone was forcefully cut, the result would only be that the treasures in the immortal stone would be completely destroyed. The bloodline of the Jie family stonecutter is somewhat special. Ling Zhao's eyes flickered slightly. He looked at the stonecutter of the Jie family who was cutting the stone. His hands were like moving clouds and flowing water. The stone skin was constantly turned into powder and fell down. It was like a butcher dismembering an ox. He cleverly cut the stone skin of the immortal stone following the texture of the immortal stone. That pair of hands was crystal clear like jade. However, they were extremely nimble and contained a mysterious aura fluctuation. It's the aura of the celestial secret skill and the divine secret skill? Could it be that they are relying on these two secret skills to cut the stone? But there are some differences. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. He could clearly sense the aura of these two secret skills from the stonecutter of the Jie family. The Jie family and the Shi family both had the stonecutter scripture, but there were slight differences. However, their stonecutter scripture could only be cultivated by the people of the two families. Outsiders could not learn the stonecutter scripture at all. In the end, the stonecutter of the Jie family completely cut open the immortal stone. However, it was completely empty. There were no treasures at all. This attracted a lot of sighs. How can there be nothing? This immortal stone cost me 10,000 immortal crystals. A middle-aged fat man in brocade robes screamed in pain. His face was full of pain. Cut the stone. 100 immortal crystals. The stonecutter of the Jie family said faintly. Although the fat man in brocade robes was very depressed, he did not dare to renege on the stonecutter fee of the Jie family. He could only obediently take out 100 immortal crystals and leave dejectedly. Is there anyone else who wants to cut the stone? The stonecutter of the Jie family asked faintly after receiving the immortal crystals. I want to cut the stone. Ling Xiao walked out and said calmly as he took out the immortal stone from his bosom. This immortal stone is of poor quality. There are many cracks on it. These cracks are called spirit-dispersing inscriptions. Even if there are treasures in it, they are worthless. Are you sure you want to cut the stone? The stonecutter of the Jie family looked at the immortal stone in Ling Xiao's hand and frowned. That's right. Ling Xiao nodded and said, Okay, cut the stone. 10 immortal crystals. The stonecutter said faintly. Then, he took the immortal stone in Ling Xiao's hand and began to cut the stone. Buzz. His hands were crystal clear like jade. They were incomparably flexible and filled with mysterious immortal light. He gently stroked the immortal stone as if there was a blade on his palm. The immortal stone trembled slightly and then the stone layer began to fall off. A strange look appeared in Ling Xiao's eyes. He vaguely sensed that the bloodline in the stonecutter's body was emitting an aura similar to the divine clan mark. Is this the reason why they can cut the stone? Or are they from the divine clan? Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat and a sharp light appeared in his eyes. Gotcha. Soon, the stone layer of the immortal stone in the hands of the stonecutter completely fell off. Immortal light filled the air and emitted an ancient aura fluctuation. A treasure has been cut out. Someone exclaimed. Suddenly, everyone's eyes looked over and landed on the immortal stone in the hands of the stonecutter. The immortal stone cracked in the middle and a piece of black ceramic appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Top. Chapter 29:15. The black ceramic piece looked very ordinary, but it exuded an ancient aura of the divine path, dense with the vicissitudes of time. A ceramic piece? It seems that this fairy stone is broken. Someone sighed, his eyes full of regret. No one found anything special about the ceramic piece, so they all thought that this fairy stone was broken. The stonecutter of the Xie family was originally indifferent, but when he saw the ceramic piece in the fairy stone, his body suddenly trembled, and his eyes revealed a trace of incomparable shock. It can actually make the God clan mark react. This ceramic piece is not simple, Ling Xiao thought to himself. He reached out to grab the ceramic piece, wanting to study it carefully. As for whether it was broken like what others said, Ling Xiao did not care. Wait, this piece of ceramic, this young master wants it. At this moment, an arrogant voice sounded. At the same time, there was a piercing sound, and a piece of fairy stone was extremely fast, smashing towards Ling Xiao's palm. If he insisted on taking the ceramic piece, he would definitely be hit by that piece of fairy stone. It was obvious that the person who threw the fairy stone did not want Ling Xiao to take the ceramic piece. Such rude behavior made Ling Xiao's eyes involuntarily turn cold. Bang! Ling Xiao did not dodge and continued to grab the ceramic piece. When that piece of fairy stone came into contact with Ling Xiao's arm, a purple thunderbolt instantly bloomed, directly smashing that piece of fairy stone into powder. And the ceramic piece was also in the palm of Ling Xiao's hand. "It's the third young master of the Shi family, Shi Tianning," someone exclaimed, and suddenly a trace of reverence appeared in his eyes. The crowd in the distance automatically dispersed, and a young man in a purple robe stepped forward, his expression arrogant and his eyes incomparably cold. Beside him, there was a woman in a green dress, looking gentle and elegant like a lily, exuding an incomparably pure aura. Especially those pair of eyes, there was not a trace of flaw, bright and dazzling. Shi Tianning actually took a fancy to that ceramic piece. Could it be that the ceramic piece is some kind of treasure? This kid actually did not give face to Shi Tianning. He's in big trouble now. That's right. Who dares not give face to the third young master of the Shi family? Even the Xie family had to be courteous to him. However, who was the fairy beside Shi Tianning? It's too beautiful. I'm not sure, but with such a noble temperament, he must be from a big sect or clan. Everyone was discussing amongst themselves. Many of them were looking at Ling Xiao with a gloating expression. From their point of view, Ling Xiao had turned a deaf ear to Shi Tianning's words. He had directly shattered the immortal stone that Shi Tianning had thrown at him and took away the ceramic shard without a care. He was clearly not giving Shi Tianning any face. "Brat, I've already said that this piece of ceramic is mine. Are you deaf?" Shi Tianning stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. Her triangular eyes were like those of a poisonous snake, flashing with a cold light. Her voice was extremely cold, as if she was reprimanding someone. "This piece of ceramic was cut out from my immortal stone. What does it have to do with you? As for whether or not I'm deaf, everyone should have seen it. If you didn't see it, then I can only say that your dog eyes are blind." Ling Xiao's lips curled into a faint smile as he spoke slowly. Once Ling Xiao's words came out, everyone looked at each other in dismay. They looked at Ling Xiao as if they were looking at a dead person. In the entire immortal ancient city, who would dare to speak to Shi Tianning in such a manner? Ling Xiao's cultivation did not seem high, but he was so audacious that he did not put the third young master of the Shi family in his eyes. He was simply tired of living. At this moment, although this was the stone-cutting pavilion of the Xie family, there was no one of importance in the Xie family. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the stone-cutting master or the shopkeeper, all of them remained silent. Shi Tianning's eyes revealed a trace of coldness and killing intent. He stared at Ling Xiao and said, "Brat, I originally intended to buy this ceramic shard with immortal crystals, but I didn't expect you to be so reckless. Kneel down and hand over the ceramic shard with both hands. Slap yourself 100 times, and I can only cripple your cultivation and spare your dog life." Shi Tianning was really angry. In particular, Ling Xiao's indifferent and calm expression did not have the slightest trace of fear. His gaze was more like an eagle looking down at an ant from the 9 heavens. This made Shi Tianning extremely unhappy and felt that it was a great provocation. The Xie family and the Shi family were the local tyrants in the immortal ancient city. Even the people from the 9 great immortal sects had to be respectful to them. Since when did someone dare to provoke the third young master of the Shi family? Behind Shi Tianning, there were 2 old men with unfathomable auras. They were both immortal venerables. Their expressions were incomparably cold, and their auras locked onto Ling Xiao. It was as if they were waiting for Shi Tianning's order to take Ling Xiao down. "Master, you are a little impulsive. Shi Tianning is used to being arrogant and domineering. It's just a ceramic shard, it's nothing much to give it to him. If we make a scene here, we will be the ones to suffer." The sky-devouring rat complained incessantly in his heart. He secretly transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao, full of worry. This was the immortal ancient city. If they offended the Shi family, they might not even be able to escape. When the time came, they would be like turtles in a jar. Although the sky-devouring rat knew that Ling Xiao was powerful, he did not think that he could contend against the Shi family. Are the people of the Shi family so arrogant and domineering? After failing to buy and sell, they want to kill people here? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His expression was still very calm, but his eyes began to turn cold. How many years had it been? Ling Xiao had rarely met such fools. He did not expect to meet such people in the immortal world. A hedonistic son who relied on his family's background to do as he pleased was just an ant that could be destroyed at any time in Ling Xiao's eyes. Although he did not want to cause trouble, he was not afraid if trouble really came. Calm down, both of you. This young master, it was Tianning who offended you. I apologize to you on his behalf. However, can you sell that ceramic shard to me? No matter how many immortal crystals it is. The beautiful eyes of the woman beside Shi Tianning flashed as she opened her mouth to speak. Her expression was very calm. Although she said sorry, she did not have the slightest intention of apologizing. Her voice was ethereal and cold, as if there were no fluctuations in her emotions. She looked calmly at Ling Xiao. Sister, why go through so much trouble? This brat refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. If you want the ceramic shard, I will just kill this brat directly. Shi Tianning said with some dissatisfaction. However, after being glanced at by the woman in green, Shi Tianning immediately shrunk his head and stopped talking. However, his eyes were still full of threat when he looked at Ling Xiao. Chapter 29:16. Could this be the second daughter of the Shi family, Shi Qingyi? Someone's eyes flashed as if he had thought of something. He couldn't help but exclaim softly. Shi Qingyi? The fairy Qingyi who entered the Alcade Immortal sect at a very young age? Hiss, this is the peerless genius of the Alcade Immortal sect. She actually came back from the Alcade Immortal sect? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as if they had thought of something. Their eyes were filled with shock. The Shi family had three great geniuses, Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianning. Shi Wuji was now the young master of the Shi family. He was a famous genius in the entire immortal realm and was admired by countless people. Xie Wushuang of the Xie family was also known as the peerless genius of the immortal ancient city. Although Shi Qingyi entered the Alcade Immortal sect at a very young age, the Alcade Immortal sect was one of the 9 great immortal sects. Shi Qingyi was a genius of the Alcade Immortal sect and was also known as Fairy Qingyi, one of the paintings of the 9 immortals. Compared to Shi Wuji and Shi Qingyi, Shi Tianning's talent was slightly inferior. However, Shi Tianning had also cultivated to the immortal king realm. The Shi family had 3 heroes, but the Xie family only had Xie Wushuang. Naturally, the Shi family was now very powerful and showed signs of overshadowing the Xie family. Shi Qingyi returned to the immortal ancient city this time for the stone-cutting ceremony that is held once every 10,000 years, right? Someone guessed softly. That should be right. The stone-cutting ceremony determines the control of the immortal ancient city. Although the immortal ancient city belongs to the Xie family and the Shi family in name, the guardian array is in the hands of the Shi family. This is why the Shi family is in the limelight. The Shi family is even more determined to win the stone-cutting ceremony this time. They want to seize control of the immortal ancient city for the next 10,000 years. Shi Qingyi should be back to help. Someone explained. Everyone was more and more in awe of Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianning. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. The immortal ancient city was about to enter an eventful period again. Sorry, I want to keep this ceramic piece. I'm not selling it. Ling Xiao said lightly. 1 million immortal crystals. If you agree, I can buy it for 1 million immortal crystals. Shi Qingyi said calmly. 1 million immortal crystals? Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. 1 million immortal crystals was enough to buy those precious divine jades and immortal fetuses. Ling Xiao had only spent 500 immortal crystals to buy this immortal stone, and he had earned 2,000 times the profit. Everyone's eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. Even the heaven-devouring rat was stunned. My goodness, Master has good taste. I'm a heaven-devouring rat. Why didn't I realize that this immortal stone is so precious? The heaven-devouring rat's eyes were filled with disbelief. He was known as the treasure-seeking mouse, and he had an extraordinary perception of immortal stones. However, he realized that he had made a mistake this time. Master, with 1,000,000 immortal crystals, we can buy the divine jade immortal fetus. If that piece of ceramic is useless, then sell it. I don't want to offend the Shi family. The heaven-devouring rat whispered to Ling Xiao. Not for sale. Ling Xiao said calmly to Shi Qingyi, ignoring the heaven-devouring rat. 5,000,000 immortal crystals. Shi Qingyi frowned and yelled out another high price. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They really wanted to know what kind of treasure that ceramic piece was. It was actually worth 5,000,000 immortal crystals? This was especially true for those who had said that the ceramic pieces were trash. They could feel their cheeks burning as they slapped themselves on the face. Monsieur, I said not for sale. Not to mention 5,000,000 immortal crystals, even if it was 50,000,000 immortal crystals, I still wouldn't sell it. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, but his expression was extremely determined. Young master, believe me, that piece of ceramic is completely useless in your hands. I still hope that you will sell it to me. This way, you can gain the friendship of the Shi family. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone? Shi Qingyi's expression turned slightly cold. Her patience was almost worn out. She didn't expect Ling Xiao to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. He didn't give her any face at all. However, that ceramic piece was incomparably important. She had to take it before the Jia family found out. Shi Qingyi was an extremely arrogant person. Although she looked calm and gentle, there were only a few people in the immortal realm who could catch her eye. If this wasn't the stone-cutting pavilion of the Jia family, she wouldn't have bid again and again. Are you threatening me, monsieur? Unfortunately, the friendship of the Shi family is useless to me, and I hate being threatened the most. I said I'm not selling this ceramic piece, so I'm not selling it. Ling Xiao said coldly and turned to leave the stone-cutting pavilion of the Jia family. You want to leave? Boy, if you don't leave the ceramic piece behind today, don't even think about going anywhere. Since you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, don't blame me for being impolite. Shi Tianying's eyes turned cold, revealing a trace of ferocity. The two celestial primes behind him flashed, their bodies filled with immortal Dao aura. Their eyes were cold, and in an instant, they blocked Ling Xiao's path of retreat. This time, even Shi Qingyi was silent and didn't stop them. For the ceramic piece, she wouldn't hesitate to use force. What? Does the Shi family really intend to force a sale? Ling Xiao said faintly with a trace of mockery at the corner of his mouth. His eyes seemed to be filled with purple lightning, making him exude a dignified and ancient aura. The rat of heaven devouring was trembling with fear, and he complained incessantly in his heart. If he really fought with the Shi family, it would be troublesome. At that time, if his and Ling Xiao's identities were exposed, he wouldn't be able to escape. He could only be captured by the Shi family like a turtle in a jar. In the immortal ancient city, the Shi family had more than one immortal master experts in charge. You dare to fight in the stone-cutting pavilion of the Jia family? The Shi family is as arrogant as ever. At this moment, a crisp female voice rang out. Xie Wushuang. After hearing the voice, Shi Qingyi's expression changed slightly, and she stared at a figure in the distance. The crowd slowly parted, and a valiant figure walked over. It was a woman in armor. The tight, soft armor outlined her perfect figure at a glance. She was tall and slender, and her whole body emitted an indescribable heroic aura. Her face was incomparably beautiful, and her skin was as white as jade. It was a combination of charm and heroic aura, especially her pair of eyebrows that were like divine swords, which added a bit of sharpness to her gentle beauty. This was a very unique woman with a heroic aura, like the brightest star in the night sky. As soon as she appeared in the stone-cutting pavilion, she immediately became the focus of everyone. Chapter 29:17. Even Shi Qingyi was overshadowed by this woman. Xie family, Xie Wushuang. A name appeared in everyone's mind, and their eyes involuntarily revealed a look of awe. They did not expect that an ordinary stone-cutting session would attract Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi. Now, it even attracted the Xie family's peerless genius, one of the two kings of the immortal ancient city, Xie Wushuang. Everyone noticed that Ling Xiao, who caused this incident, was standing there calmly, as if he was a fool without the slightest bit of apprehension or fear. They did not know if Ling Xiao was fearless because of his ignorance, or if he had something to rely on. After seeing Xie Wushuang, even the calm and gentle Shi Qingyi revealed a hint of jealousy in her eyes. Shi Tianying concealed the passion in her eyes. Every time she saw Xie Wushuang's hot figure, Shi Tianying felt that she could not control herself. This was an extremely perfect woman, making all the men in the world feel ashamed of their inferiority. Shi Qingyi, Shi Tianying, you came to my Xie family's stone-cutting pavilion to cause trouble. Do you really think my Xie family is easy to bully? Xie Wushuang stood in front of Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying. She was extremely tall, taller than Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying by a head. Unconsciously, she had a feeling of superiority, and her voice was indifferent. Xie Wushuang, so what if it's the Xie family's stone-cutting pavilion? This brat spoke rudely to me and my sister. What's wrong with us teaching him a lesson? Don't be a busybody here, Shi Tianying said, trying to put on a brave front. Shi Qingyi stopped Shi Tianying and looked at Xie Wushuang with a smile. Sister Wushuang, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. We just want to make a deal with this young master. Why would we fight in the Xie family's stone-cutting pavilion? Is it just a simple deal? 5 million immortal crystals, you're really generous. You want to buy the divine cauldron fragment with a mere 5 million immortal crystals? Xie Wushuang smiled faintly with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Divine cauldron fragment? What's that? Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion. Even Ling Zhao's heart could not help but tremble. However, the heaven-devouring rat's body trembled as if it had thought of something. Its eyes revealed incomparable excitement and disbelief. Master, no wonder that little bitch Shi Qingyi would spend 5 million spiritual crystal to buy a ceramic piece. So it's actually a fragment of a divine cauldron? We're rich. The heaven-devouring rat excitedly transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao. What is the divine cauldron fragment? Master, the divine cauldron is also known as the cauldron of creation. It's the celestial race's treasure of providence. However, the cauldron of creation had been shattered into countless pieces during the primordial antiquity era. After so many years, a few people obtained the fragments of the divine cauldron. Some comprehended supreme divine arts from it, and some comprehended the grand Tao of the heaven and earth from it. Some had their cultivation soar by leaps and bounds, and they forged a supreme Tao foundation. The divine cauldron fragment was a treasure that represented an unparalleled opportunity. Legend had it that if one could gather all the fragments of the divine cauldron and recreate the cauldron of creation, they would be able to obtain the blessings of the divine clan and even become an emperor. In the immortal world, every time a fragment of the divine cauldron appeared, it would cause countless experts to fight over it. Ordinary people might not know, but the Jie clan and the Shi clan definitely knew. No wonder that little bitch Shi Qingyi was willing to pay 500 spiritual crystal. Master, you're right. Even 50 million or 500 million spiritual crystal wouldn't be enough. The Shi clan is really evil. They actually want to cheat you of your treasure. They deserve to die. The heaven-devouring rat transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao, extremely agitated. Ling Xiao was a little speechless. The heaven-devouring rat was simply a fence-sitter. This fellow had probably forgotten who had just said to sell the ceramic piece to Shi Qingyi to avoid offending the Shi clan. However, the cauldron of creation of the divine clan still made Ling Zhao's heart skip a beat. What was the relationship between the cauldron of creation and the divine clan seal? The fragment of the cauldron of creation could cause the divine clan seal to tremble. It could be seen that the two had a very deep relationship. Jie Wushuang, don't tell me that you don't want the fragment of the divine cauldron. This kid's cultivation is weak. If he has the fragment of the divine cauldron, it will only cause trouble. I'm helping him. Shi Qingyi's eyes turned cold, but her heart couldn't help but sink. As expected, Jie Wushuang had found out. That's right. I also want the fragment of the divine cauldron. However, the Jie clan has always done things in an upright manner. We have never used our power to bully others, and we will never do things like force a sale. The two of you, since this young master is unwilling to sell it to you, please leave. Jie Wushuang said plainly. Very well. Jie Wushuang, I hope that you can still be so unyielding during the stone-cracking ceremony. Let's go. Shi Qingyi's expression changed slightly as she glanced at Jie Wushuang and said coldly. Don't worry about it. Jie Wushuang said plainly. Shi Qingyi left with Shi Tianning. Since Jie Wushuang had made a move, it was impossible for them to obtain the fragment of the divine cauldron from Ling Xiao. Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianning's expressions didn't look too good, especially Shi Tianning. Before she left, she glared fiercely at Ling Xiao. Her eyes were filled with warning and threat. However, Ling Xiao ignored her. Everyone tactfully dispersed. Ling Xiao originally wanted to leave the stone-cracking pavilion with the heaven-devouring rat, but he was stopped by Jie Wushuang. How should I address you, young master? Jie Wushuang looked at Ling Xiao with interest. Her beautiful eyes sparkled and were filled with curiosity. I'm Lei Ling. Miss Wushuang, if you want to talk about the fragment of the divine cauldron, then forget it. Ling Xiao said plainly. Lei Ling? What a familiar name. I know that you won't sell the fragment of the divine cauldron. I'm not looking for you for the fragment of the divine cauldron. Jie Wushuang said with a smile. Her words made the corner of Ling Xiao's eyes twitch. He had already left the dozens of prefectures that Lei Ling frequented. Could it be that there were still people here who recognized Lei Ling? Ling Xiao had a bad feeling in his heart, but he still said calmly, What's the matter? I wonder if young Master Lei is interested in stone gambling? The Shi family's stone workshop recently received a batch of immortal stones. It is said that there are old mines in the God Burial Abyss and even immortal jade fairy fetus. There must be many treasures in it. I would like to invite young Master Lei to the Shi family's stone workshop for stone gambling. How about it? Jie Wushuang said with a smile. Stone gambling at the Shi family's stone workshop? There was a strange look in Ling Xiao's eyes. Miss Jie Wushuang was really a sentimental person. How was this stone gambling? She was probably going to cause trouble? Why did Miss Wushuang invite me? I know nothing about stone gambling. Ling Xiao asked curiously. Intuition. I feel that young Master Lei is extremely lucky to be able to find the fragment of the divine cauldron. Perhaps you can find more treasures in the Shi family's stone workshop. Could it be that young Master Lei is afraid of the Shi family? Jie Wushuang's eyes moved as she smiled faintly. I'm not afraid. However, I am really interested in stone gambling. Since Miss Wushuang invited me, I naturally have no reason to reject. Ling Xiao smiled and nodded in agreement. End of chapter. Chapter 29:18. Qinyuan Stone Shop. Qinyuan Stone Shop was one of the largest stone shops in the immortal ancient city. The owner behind it was the Shi family. There were countless precious immortal stones, immortal jades, and immortal fetuses. Every day, there would be many distinguished guests spending money here. Stone gambling was also a popular activity in Qinyuan Stone Shop. After all, although the Shi family was a family of stonecutters and had a deep understanding of immortal stones, they could not be completely sure whether there were any treasures in the immortal stones. This kind of unknown was the most attractive. Every day, there would be people gambling in Qinyuan Stone Shop. They would either cut out treasures and make a fortune, or they would cut out useless stones and lose everything. The immortal stones, immortal jades, and immortal fetuses in Qinyuan Stone Shop were all extremely expensive. They could be called treasures and attracted countless people to compete for them. The place where Jie Wushuang brought Ling Xiao was Qinyuan Stone Shop. Qinyuan Stone Shop was a huge manor. It looked very imposing. On both sides of the road leading inside were towering ancient trees. All of them were emitting a majestic aura of life. They looked verdant and were the spiritual roots of heaven and earth. Inside the manor, spiritual energy gathered and propitious vapors rose. Bright rays of light bloomed, like an incomparably mysterious fairyland. Many figures with powerful auras entered Qianyuan's stone shop. All of them were dressed in luxurious clothes and had extraordinary bearings. After choosing the immortal stones, they directly took out a large sum of immortal crystals to buy them. Then, they handed them over to the stone cutters of the Sure family. From time to time, there would be exclamations or regretful voices. Stone cutting was the most exciting moment. It affected everyone's heartbeat. It's Miss Xie Wushuang from the Xie family. Why would she come to Qianyuan's stone shop? Isn't it said that the Xie family and the Sure family are not on good terms? She's not here to cause trouble, right? Someone recognized Xie Wushuang's identity and exclaimed softly. Xie Wushuang was valiant and had a different kind of beauty. Especially her perfect figure, which was full of explosive power and wildness. She was like the center of heaven and earth. No matter where she appeared, she would be the focus of everyone. She was too outstanding. Therefore, after she entered Qianyuan's stone shop, she caused a sensation. Quickly informed the third young master that Xie Wushuang is here. I'm afraid she came to my Qianyuan stone shop with ill intentions. An old man with a hale and hearty face whispered to a maid beside him, then he turned around and greeted Xie Wushuang with a smile. Miss Wushuang, what brings you here? You're willing to come to our Qianyuan stone shop. Your presence brings light to our humble dwelling. The old man said with a smile. Shopkeeper, sure, I'm afraid that's not what you think, right? Don't worry, I'm not looking for trouble this time. You can treat me as an ordinary customer. I'm here for stone gambling. Xie Wushuang smiled faintly. This is Shi Dequan, the shopkeeper of Qianyuan's stone workshop and also an elder of the Shi family. This guy is a smiling tiger, and his eyes are very sharp. His stone dissecting skill has reached the acme of perfection. The divine immortal stones and divine jade immortal fetuses that he has his eyes on, most of them can be cut open to reveal treasures. Xie Wushuang sent a voice transmission to Ling Xiao and introduced this old man's identity. His stone dissecting skill has reached the acme of perfection? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Shi Dequan was a celestial prime expert with an extremely powerful cultivation. After all, if he wanted to become the shopkeeper of Qianyuan's stone workshop, he must have enough strength to deter people and prevent people from coming to make trouble. However, Ling Xiao was also very curious about the stone dissecting skill that Xie Wushuang mentioned. Shopkeeper Shi could use the stone dissecting skill to find out whether there were treasures in the divine immortal stones. As for Ling Xiao's insight into the divine immortal stones with the Dominator's eye, it could not be considered as stone dissecting skill at all. It could only be considered as cheating. Miss Wushuang wants to stone gambling in my Qianyuan stone workshop? No problem. As long as Miss Wushuang is interested in all the divine immortal stones and divine jade immortal fetuses in the Qianyuan stone workshop, I'll give Miss Wushuang a 10% discount. Shi Dequan said with a smile. Thank you very much, Shopkeeper Shi. Shopkeeper Shi, please go ahead. I'll take a look around first. Xie Wushuang said noncommittally. Then she walked into the depths of the stone workshop with Ling Xiao. Although the divine immortal stones in the periphery looked strange with divine light lingering around them and had extraordinary qi, they were all cheap goods. Most of them were below 10,000 fairy crystals, so Xie Wushuang was not interested in them at all. What she was interested in were the treasures in the Qianyuan stone workshop. Looking at the backs of Xie Wushuang, Ling Xiao, and the sky-devouring rat, the smile on Shi Dequan's face gradually disappeared. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Stone gambling? This is a good opportunity. Shi Dequan whispered to himself. Then he turned and left. Qianyuan stone workshop has 3 grades of divine immortal stones: heaven, earth, and human. Human-level divine stones are mostly below 10,000 fairy crystals. Earth-level divine stones are between 10,000 fairy crystals to 1 million fairy crystals. The most precious heaven-level divine stones, including the divine jade immortal fetuses, are all priced above 1 million fairy crystals. Most of them are carefully selected by the Shi family. It is almost certain that there will be treasures in them. Xie Wushuang introduced them to Ling Xiao as she walked deeper into the workshop. The 3 grades of divine stones were also stored in the heaven, earth, and human courtyards. Human-level divine stones and earth-level divine stones were naturally the most popular for stone gambling. Heaven-level divine stones were rarely open to the public and were only available to some distinguished guests. Because the price was too high, very few people would go to the heaven courtyard. In the human courtyard, there were 100,000 human-level divine stones. As long as someone bought it, there would be new divine immortal stones to replace it. The number of divine immortal stones had always been maintained. As for the earth courtyard, there were only 2,000 earth-level divine stones. Ling Xiao followed Xie Wushuang and walked into the earth courtyard. There's a treasure in there. It's a top-grade celestial sword. Cries of alarm rang out from the earth courtyard. Xie Wushuang and Ling Xiao both found that someone had bought a divine immortal stone. At this moment, the divine immortal stone had been opened. A bright celestial sword was floating in the void. The sword chi was rising, extremely sharp, and exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. After being preserved for so many years, it still had such power. This showed how extraordinary this celestial sword was. 20,000 divine immortal stones to get a top-grade celestial sword? This top-grade celestial sword should be worth at least 1 million immortal crystals, right? Someone exclaimed in admiration, his eyes filled with envy. At that moment, the master of the immortal stone, a black-cloaked young man, also appeared to be very excited. His face was filled with incomparable excitement. Young Master Heiyun, sell this celestial sword to me. I'll pay 1 million immortal crystals. Someone said impatiently. 1 million immortal crystals to buy this celestial sword? I'll pay 1,500,000 immortal crystals. 2 million immortal crystals. The price of the celestial sword from the divine immortal stone was quickly pushed to a very high price. Someone from the ancient god sect? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed and fell on the black-robed young man. He found that the black-robed young man was from the ancient god sect. Why would someone from the ancient god sect appear in the immortal ancient city? Ling Xiao had a bad feeling. Could it be that Saintess Yunxi had come to the immortal ancient city? Chapter 29:19. From Lei Ling's memory, Ling Xiao did not find any information about the Heiyun prince that everyone was talking about. However, Ling Xiao vaguely felt that this Heiyun prince was not simple. He probably won't recognize me, right? A thought appeared in Ling Xiao's mind. If he was recognized as Lei Ling, then it would be troublesome. Especially now, Ling Xiao was not sure if there were other experts from the ancient god cult here. Lady Wushuang is here. Someone exclaimed. Instantly, everyone's attention fell on Jie Wushuang. Jie Wushuang was like a princess in the immortal ancient city. She was famous even in the immortal world. Therefore, it wasn't just the people in the immortal ancient city who were attracted by her. Many other heaven's pride's eyes lit up when they saw her. Everyone, I'm not selling this flowing light celestial sword. Heiyun Prince kept the celestial sword and quickly walked towards Jie Wushuang. Lady Wushuang, this flowing light celestial sword is a treasure that I just found. As the saying goes, a treasure sword matches a beauty. I would like to give this flowing light celestial sword to you. Heiyun Prince said with a smile. He looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. He had a handsome appearance, jade-like skin, and was extraordinary. At this moment, he handed the flowing light celestial sword to Jie Wushuang with bright eyes. This flowing light celestial sword is too precious. You should keep it for yourself. This time, I'm here to gamble on stones in the Qinyuan stone shop. I can't accept this flowing light celestial sword without doing anything. Jie Wushuang said with a faint smile. Her expression was calm and she did not accept the flowing light celestial sword. Heiyun Prince's expression froze. He did not expect Jie Wushuang to reject him so easily. However, his expression quickly returned to normal. It's okay. In that case, leave the flowing light celestial sword with me for the time being. However, if Lady Wushuang wants to gamble on stones, perhaps I can do it for her. I know the immortal stones in the earth courtyard like the back of my hand. I'll definitely be able to pick a valuable immortal stone for Lady Wushuang. Heiyun Prince said with a smile. He looked very elegant. He was naturally very fond of Jie Wushuang, especially after learning of her identity. He was even more attentive to her in the immortal ancient city. It was just a pity that Xie Wushuang did not have any good impression of him. No need. Young Master Black Cloud, please go ahead. I will take a look around first. Xie Wushuang said non-committally, her expression incomparably cold. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. He believed that with Miss Wushuang's stone-cutting skills, she would definitely be able to pick out a precious immortal stone. How should I address you, brother? Young Master Heiyun smiled and looked at Ling Xiao. His eyes were very sharp. He could see that Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang were standing side by side like a celestial couple. This made young Master Heiyun extremely jealous. Although Ling Xiao's cultivation did not seem to be high, his bearing was extraordinary. For Xie Wushuang to treat him like this, he was probably not an ordinary person. This is a friend of mine. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Xie Wushuang frowned and said. She did not like young Master Heiyun from the bottom of her heart. However, she vaguely knew that young Master Heiyun's identity was not someone the Xie family could afford to offend. Hence, she had always kept a respectful distance from him. However, she did not expect young Master Heiyun to be like a sticky candy. As long as he saw her, he would always stick to her. Friend? Could it be that this young master is also proficient in stone cutting? The immortal stones in the earth courtyard are not cheap. Ordinary people can't afford them. If you fancy any immortal stones, I can give them to you. Young Master Heiyun sized Ling Xiao up and smiled. Thank you for your kind intentions, but there's no need. I'm only here to broaden my knowledge with Miss Wushuang. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. As expected, young Master Heiyun did not recognize him. Hence, Ling Xiao was relieved. However, he was also curious about young Master Heiyun's identity. Since young Master Heiyun was treated like this by Xie Wushuang and the surrounding people were so respectful to him, Ling Xiao was afraid that young Master Heiyun had an extraordinary position in the ancient god cult. However, Ling Xiao was sure that there was no information about young Master Heiyun in Lei Ling's memory. Where did this young Master Heiyun come from? While Ling Xiao was pondering, he went to check the immortal stones in the earth courtyard with Xie Wushuang. Boom! The immortal stones in the earth courtyard were strangely shaped. They were surrounded by immortal light and had all kinds of mysterious appearances. There was even a great way divine sound that permeated the air. At first glance, one could tell that they were extraordinary items. The immortal stones here were expensive. Almost every immortal stone was priced at tens of thousands of immortal crystals or even hundreds of thousands of immortal crystals. Xie Wushuang looked very casual, but Ling Xiao could see that there were strands of strange light in her eyes. Moreover, when the immortal light gushed out from her palms and brushed past the immortal stones would have some slight changes. This was the Jie family's stone-cutting skill. Xie Wushuang was using the stone-cutting skill to check the immortal stones. The immortal stones in the earth courtyard are so expensive. I'm afraid there must be a lot of treasures inside. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He directly activated the power of Sovereign. His eyes were filled with divine light as he slowly looked at the immortal stones. The stone surface of the immortal stones was intertwined with the aura of Divine Way and Immortal Way. It also contained the chaotic origin power of the Great Way. It could have prevented all probing, but under Ling Xiao's Eye of Sovereign, it had nowhere to hide. The scene inside the immortal stones was clearly perceived by Ling Xiao. There are indeed a lot of treasures. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. He found that inside the immortal stones, some contained immortal herbs, some contained immortal crystals, and some even contained powerful immortal weapons. It was indeed the largest stone workshop of the Shi family. In the earth courtyard of the Qianyuan stone workshop, Ling Xiao indeed found a lot of treasures among the thousands of immortal stones. However, Ling Xiao also found that although most of the immortal stones seemed to be shining with immortal light and extraordinary aura, they were empty. After all, there were only a few treasures that could be found in them. What's that? Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly flashed. He saw a pitch-black immortal rock in the distance. It didn't look very conspicuous, but there was a purple bead inside. It flickered with strange lightning as if it contained a powerful aura of the way of thunder. That pearl made Ling Xiao's heart skip a beat. It seemed to have a strange connection with the divine punishment secret skill and the Thunder Emperor scripture. Ling Xiao immediately walked towards the immortal stone and was prepared to buy it now. End of chapter. Chapter 29-20. 50,000 Immortal Crystals. The immortal stone that Ling Xiao had his eyes on was not expensive, but it was not as eye-catching as the other immortal stones. Ling Xiao handed the 50,000 immortal crystals to the steward of the Shi family and bought the immortal stone. At this moment, Jie Wushuang had also chosen 3 immortal stones. The 3 immortal stones looked quite extraordinary as they flowed with bright immortal light and propitious qi. They were obviously not ordinary stones. Moreover, the price of the 3 immortal stones was also very high. They added up to 1,000,000 immortal crystals. Brother Lei, did you only buy 1 immortal stone? Jie Wushuang asked in surprise. I think this immortal stone should be enough to cut out treasures. It's enough, Ling Xiao said with a smile. He had looked through all the immortal stones in the earth courtyard. Although there were some precious treasures, he didn't care about them at all. Only this immortal stone was the most precious in his eyes. Brother, this immortal stone of yours looks very ordinary. There are many small cracks on it, and there is a faint purple light inside. Those are the purple light cracks, produced in the purple light mountain of the Donglin Taoist state. It's difficult to cut out any treasures from the purple light mountain. Could it be that you're embarrassed? Brother, since you're Miss Wushuang's friend, you're my friend. You can choose any immortal stone in the earth courtyard. It's all mine. At this moment, young Master Heiyun also came over and smiled at Ling Xiao. He could tell at a glance that the immortal stone that Ling Xiao had chosen was from the purple light mountain of the Donglin Taoist state. He had an extremely sharp eye and obviously had a deep understanding of the immortal stone. Brother Lei, young Master Heiyun is right. Your immortal stone should be from the purple light mountain. The purple light mountain is an ancient abandoned mine. It's difficult to cut out treasures from it. Why don't you choose another one? Xie Wushuang also reminded him. No need. I'll take this one, Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Seeing Ling Xiao so insistent, Jie Wushuang did not try to persuade him anymore. Young Master Heiyun also shook his head. In the end, he also chose an immortal stone. It was worth 900,000 immortal crystals, and was the largest one in the earth courtyard. It was more than 3 meters tall, and vaguely looked like a human-shaped statue. It emitted a dazzling immortal light. This immortal stone was also the most expensive one. Seeing young Master Black Cloud's extravagant manner, it was clear that 900,000 immortal crystals were nothing in his eyes. Ling Xiao was also very curious about young Master Black Cloud's background. After all, Lei Ling was very familiar with the higher-ups and important figures in the ancient god cult, but he had never heard of Master Heiyun's name. Young Master Heiyun actually bought that flying immortal stone? That's 900,000 immortal crystals we're talking about. If it's broken, then it'll be a huge waste. Someone praised and clicked his tongue in wonder. Since you know that this is a flying immortal stone, how can it be destroyed? I heard that the elders of the Shi family have personally examined the flying immortal stone. Although it's weak, it's still extremely precious. It almost became a divine jade fairy fetus. That's right. The flying immortal stone is extremely precious. The Shi family isn't sure about it, so they placed it in the earth courtyard. The flying immortal stone should be placed in the heaven courtyard. 900,000 immortal crystals really isn't expensive. If there's a living thing in the immortal stone, it'll definitely cause an uproar. With young Master Heiyun's luck, he should be able to get a treasure out of it, right? Young Master Heiyun's purchase of the flying immortal stone for 900,000 immortal crystals attracted the attention of everyone in the Earth Courtyard. Those who could come to the Earth Courtyard were either rich or respectable. They had all seen the flying immortal stone before, but they weren't sure about it. Therefore, no one touched it. However, everyone was very curious about the flying immortal stone. They were curious about what kind of treasure could be obtained from the flying immortal stone. Flying immortal stone? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. The power of sovereign filled his eyes, and he instantly saw through the flying immortal stone. A strange look appeared in Ling Zhao's eyes. This flying immortal stone was indeed extraordinary. Let's cut it, Jie Wushuang said lightly. Although her stone-cutting skills were extremely high, it was obvious that she couldn't cut the stone herself in such an occasion. Naturally, she handed it over to the Shi family's stone-cutting master. Miss Wushuang, why don't we cut my flying immortal stone first? I can see that everyone is very curious about the flying immortal stone. I also want to know what's inside this flying immortal stone. Young Master Heiyun said with a smile. Flying immortal stone? The aura in this flying immortal stone is neither dead nor alive. It's very strange. I've checked it before, but I can't make up my mind. Have you really decided to cut the flying immortal stone? Jie Wushuang's gaze fell on the flying immortal stone and said slowly, I believe in my eyesight. This flying immortal stone will definitely contain a treasure. Young Master Heiyun insisted. In that case, let's cut the flying immortal stone. Jie Wushuang nodded and said. She was also very curious about the flying immortal stone. Master, this young Master Heiyun looks really annoying. If there's a treasure in his flying immortal stone, he'll be in the limelight in front of Miss Wushuang again. Heaven-devouring rat said indignantly. It's his luck that there's a treasure in the flying immortal stone. It doesn't matter if he's in the limelight or not. Have you forgotten what we're here for? Ling Xiao laughed involuntarily. Master, let's not talk about whether we can really cut out the real treasure. Although there's a high probability that there's a treasure in the immortal stone in the Shi family's Qinyuan stone shop, there's also a lot of waste. Moreover, are we really going to cause trouble in the Qinyuan stone shop? Heaven-devouring rat said with a guilty conscience. Aren't you known as the treasure-seeking rat? Go take a look at these immortal stones and see if you can find any treasure. I'm counting on you, Ling Xiao said with a smile. Being stared at by Ling Xiao, heaven-devouring rat felt even more guilty. He quickly coughed and said with a smile, Master, what are you saying? Although I'm a treasure-seeking rat, I can't see through the outer layer of the immortal stone. However, I'll try. I'll try to find more immortal stones that can be cut out with treasures. I won't let Master suffer too much. Ling Xiao gave a non-committal smile and looked into the distance. The stonecutter of the Shi family had already started to cut the stone. The immortal ascension stone was the ultimate treasure of the Earth Courtyard, and it was worth 900,000 immortal crystals. It had a peculiar shape, ancient and mysterious, and it was surrounded by resplendent immortal light. There was even a faint divine sound of the great Tao coming from it. It was extremely extraordinary. The hands of the stonecutter of the Shi family shone with bright light and became extremely sharp. They were surrounded by mysterious runes and started to cut the stone. Although the immortal stone was extremely hard, the hands of the stonecutter were like blades. They kept cutting the outer layer of the stone, separating the veins of the immortal stone, and breaking the divine Tao and immortal Tao aura. It was extremely ingenious and ensured that the treasure inside the immortal stone would not be damaged. Chapter 29-21. As the surface of the stone fell, everyone's attention was drawn to it. Although they had yet to see the treasure, they were extremely patient. In the entire Earth Courtyard, only the clear sound of the stonecutter cutting the stone could be heard. Boom! Suddenly, the stonecutter's hands trembled slightly, and immediately, a dazzling immortal light burst out from the immortal stone. A treasure has been cut out. Someone exclaimed in surprise. Immediately, everyone's attention was drawn to the immortal stone. Inside the immortal stone, there was a milky white light. It looked like a crystal-clear jade, white and flawless. In an instant, a rich fragrance filled the air, lifting everyone's spirits. They felt comfortable all over, and a warm current flowed through their limbs. It was an indescribable comfort. This is the legendary life source stone? Someone said with a trembling body. His eyes were filled with disbelief and excitement. What? Life source stone? Everyone's body trembled. These 4 words seemed to have some kind of magical power, causing their breathing to quicken. Life source stone. Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Master, the life source stone is an extremely precious treasure of heaven and earth. It's also an ultimate treasure. Not only can it be used to refine an ultimate emperor weapon, but it also contains a majestic life great Tao origin. It can enhance an expert's life origin, and there's a chance to comprehend the life origin great Tao from it. Legend has it that if there's enough life source stone, it can even allow an emperor realm expert to live for another era. Sky-devouring rat was also extremely excited as he transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao. What's the value of the life source stone? Ling Xiao asked. The life source stone is extremely precious. 1/2 kilogram of it is worth tens of millions of immortal crystals, and it's priceless. This life source stone is at least a few dozen kilograms. Young Master Heiyun is so lucky. The heaven-devouring rat sucked in a breath of cold air. A few dozen kilograms of life source stone was equivalent to hundreds of millions of immortal crystals. The final return of 900,000 immortal stones was hundreds to thousands of times more. Even though young Master Heiyun was rich and imposing, his face was flushed at this moment. What a pity! Xie Wushuang's eyes flashed, revealing a trace of regret. At this moment, the immortal ascension stone was completely opened. Inside was a life source stone the size of a human head. It was crystal clear and dazzling, as flawless as white jade. However, everyone suddenly discovered that there was a strange insect inside the life source stone. It looked like a cricket, but also like an ant. It was pitch black and had a pair of wings on its back. It looked as thin as a cicada's wings and was very lifelike. However, there was a trace of death aura emanating from the insect's body. The insect was dead. This life source stone has been destroyed. A true life source stone had its life origin hidden within, and it was impossible for it to leak out any life origin aura. But that life origin aura just now was most likely the last life origin aura of the life source stone. My guess is that the insect must have entered the life source stone and swallowed a large amount of the life source stone. In the end, the life source stone was exhausted, and the insect died in the life source stone for some unknown reason. What a pity! If it was a complete life source stone, it would indeed be extremely precious. Xie Wushuang explained. It turned out that the life source stone in this life source stone had been completely leaked. If there was really a complete life source stone in this immortal ascension stone, even the immortal monarchs would be alarmed and might even fight over it. But now, a destroyed life source stone had no value at all. Young Master Heiyun's face instantly turned extremely ugly. As the saying goes, one thought to heaven, and one thought to hell. Young Master Heiyun had just experienced the feeling of falling from heaven to hell. Hundreds of millions of immortal crystals had disappeared. That feeling was extremely uncomfortable and his heart was about to break. Don't worry, don't worry. Young Master Heiyun forced a smile, but that smile looked even more painful than crying. Even if the life source stone has been leaked, this life source stone is still very precious, right? And that insect inside the life source stone, could it be a primordial mutant? Someone asked doubtfully. A life source stone without the life source stone is just a good-looking stone. Perhaps it's worth dozens of immortal crystals. As for that insect, who knows how many years it has been dead? Even if it's a primordial mutant, what's the use? The stonecutter of the Shi family shook his head at this moment. At this moment, everyone looked at young Master Heiyun with eyes full of sympathy. If it was a complete life source stone, it would probably cause an uproar in the entire immortal ancient city, and young Master Heiyun would also receive a large sum of wealth. But now, everything had disappeared without a trace. Young Master Heiyun had even lost 900,000 immortal crystals. This is so fucking exciting. Someone couldn't help but curse. Just a moment ago, they thought that a supreme treasure had appeared. But in the next moment, they realized that the immortal flying stone had been destroyed. At this moment, even the stonecutter of the Shi family was very glad that young Master Heiyun had bought the immortal flying stone. Continue with the stonecutter, Jie Wushuang said lightly. Seeing young Master Heiyun's extremely uncomfortable look, she did not say anything. She could only continue with the stonecutter, hoping to divert everyone's attention. The 3 immortal stones that Jie Wushuang had chosen were placed on the stone table by the stonecutter of the Shi family. The 3 immortal stones were not big, only the size of a wash basin. They had a strange shape, surrounded by immortal light, like a fake mountain. Soon, the first immortal stone was opened. It's also a supreme-grade immortal artifact? And it's a defensive immortal artifact? Someone exclaimed. Their attention was attracted by a small round shield in the void. That small round shield was emitting a bright immortal light, like a tortoise shell. It looked simple and mysterious. It was not damaged at all, and was a flawless immortal artifact. And it was an ancient immortal artifact. A supreme-grade immortal artifact was already very rare, let alone a defensive immortal artifact. This small round shield could be sold for at least a few million immortal crystals. Continue. Jie Wushuang looked calm and requested to continue with the stonecutter. It was as if a supreme-grade defensive immortal artifact was nothing in her eyes. Soon, the other 2 immortal stones were also opened. This time, they were not so lucky. Among the other 2 immortal stones, one was completely destroyed. There was nothing in it, while the other immortal stone had a strange tricolored flame. That tricolored flame was emitting a bright immortal light. It looked very simple and was floating in the void. Suddenly, the surrounding temperature began to rise. Tricolored immortal lotus fire seed? Not bad, not bad. If this tricolored immortal lotus fire evolves to the extreme, it can even evolve into a 9-colored immortal lotus fire. It can burn the heavens and destroy the earth. It's omnipotent. It's worth at least a few million immortal crystals. Someone said in surprise, recognizing the origin of that tricolored flame. Chapter 29-22. The 9-colored immortal lotus fire was one of the top 10 immortal fires in the immortal world. However, the 9-colored immortal lotus fire was not born naturally. Its most basic form was the 3-colored immortal lotus fire. It could continuously devour heaven and earth rare flames, fuse with heaven and earth treasures, and finally evolve into the ultimate form, the 9-colored immortal lotus fire. However, the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed was also extremely rare. It was extremely attractive to alchemists, weapon refiners, and experts who cultivated the great Tao of fire. Therefore, the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed was extremely precious. It was worth at least a few million immortal crystals. Jie Wushuang had spent 1 million immortal crystals to buy 3 immortal stones. She had obtained a supreme-grade defensive immortal weapon and the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed. Its value had reached tens of millions of immortal crystals. Miss Wushuang, I'll pay 3 million immortal crystals for the supreme-grade defensive immortal weapon. I'll pay 5 million immortal crystals. I want the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed. How about 5 million immortal crystals? Miss Wushuang, please sell the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed to me. Seeing the 2 treasures that Jie Wushuang had obtained, everyone was extremely excited. Whether it was the supreme-grade defensive immortal weapon or the 3-colored immortal lotus fire seed, they were all good things. Jie Wushuang did not care about the bidding of the crowd. Instead, her gaze fell on Ling Xiao. She smiled and said, "Brother Lei, do you want to take a look at your immortal stone?" Although Jie Wushuang felt that the immortal stone that Ling Xiao had bought was an old mine in the Amethyst Mountain, and it would be difficult to obtain treasures from it, she thought that Ling Xiao had already obtained a fragment of the divine cauldron. Perhaps, this immortal stone of the Amethyst Mountain could also produce treasures? Fairy Wushuang, what can be obtained from the immortal stone of the Amethyst Mountain? Even my flying immortal stone is useless. His immortal stone must be useless as well. There's no need to look at it. Why don't we go to the heavenly courtyard? There should be something good in the immortal stone there. Young Master Heiyun suddenly sneered. Although he had been pretending before, he was still hostile towards Ling Xiao. Now that the flying celestial stone had been destroyed, his mentality was already out of balance. Seeing Xie Wushuang's concern for Ling Xiao, the flames of jealousy in his heart instantly rose. He finally dropped his disguise and directly revealed his hostility towards Ling Xiao. Hearing young Master Heiyun's ear-piercing voice, Ling Xiao's brows furrowed slightly. However, he still ignored him and directly said to the stonecutter of the Shi family, "Open the stone." Young Master Heiyun, if you want to go to the heaven-class courtyard, please go ahead. Since Brother Lei chose this immortal stone, then he must have his reasons. Why do you have to be so contemptuous? Who knows, maybe Brother Lei's immortal stone will reveal some valuable treasures. Xie Wushuang glanced at young Master Heiyun indifferently. The celestial stone of the Violet Light Mountain has never yielded any treasures. I'm just stating a fact. However, since Fairy Wushuang wants to watch, then I will accompany you. He is just asking for humiliation. Young Master Heiyun sneered. Master, this guy is too despicable. He was still pretending just now. Ever since his flying celestial stone was destroyed, this guy has been targeting you everywhere. If it weren't for the fact that we can't fight here, I would really want to beat him up and vent your anger for Master. Sky-devouring rat transmitted his voice with righteous indignation. I'm afraid you're not his opponent. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He didn't put young Master Heiyun in his eyes. He was just curious about the person behind young Master Heiyun. In Ling Xiao's eyes, young Master Heiyun was just a clown who wasn't worth his anger. Ling Xiao handed the immortal stone to the stonecutter. Hearing young Master Heiyun say that the immortal stone in Ling Xiao's hand was from the Violet Light Mountain, many people instantly lost interest and turned to leave. Only a few people stayed behind. However, they weren't here to watch the stonecutter, but to look at Xie Wushuang. Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent. His gaze fell on the hands of the stonecutter as he carefully observed the stonecutter's method of cutting the stone. Buzz. The stonecutter's hands were as sharp as knives, peeling off the surface of the stone. However, it was still grayish-brown in color and didn't change at all. This immortal stone has been cut halfway, but there's still nothing. It's already wasted. Fairy Wushuang, there's no need for us to stay and watch. Young Master Heiyun's eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. However, Ling Xiao didn't call for a halt. The stonecutter of the Shi family continued to cut the stone. As the mottled surface of the stone continued to fall off, the immortal stone became smaller and smaller. Suddenly, a purple ray of light bloomed from the immortal stone. There's actually a treasure out of it? Xie Wushuang was originally a little disappointed. However, her eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of incomparable shock. She saw a wisp of purple light rising from the immortal stone like lightning. Moreover, as the surface of the stone fell off, the purple lightning became brighter and brighter. Rumble. In the end, there was a rumbling sound of thunder in the earth courtyard, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. The purple light was dazzling and incomparably gorgeous. It was like a purple lightning blooming in the void. It was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. Buzz. A purple bead floated in the void, surrounded by purple lightning. It looked crystal clear and emitted an ancient and mysterious aura. The surrounding void trembled violently. Within the purple bead, there was a vast heavenly aura that spread out, causing the surrounding people to feel their hearts palpitating. What treasure is this? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and doubt. They never thought that the immortal stone of the Violet Light Mountain would actually yield a treasure. What made them puzzled was that the purple bead looked rather extraordinary and contained pure lightning energy. However, they couldn't recognize the origin of the purple bead. At this moment, the smile on young Master Heiyun's face froze. His face instantly became extremely gloomy and ugly. He felt a burning pain on his face, as if he had been slapped by Ling Xiao. He couldn't figure it out, nor was he willing to believe it. How could the immortal stone of the Violet Light Mountain yield a treasure? This bead must be related to the Lightning Emperor. Ling Zhao's heart trembled, and a trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. He could feel that when the purple bead appeared, not only did the Sky Punishment secret skill that he cultivated improve by leaps and bounds, but even the Lightning Emperor scripture that he cultivated began to circulate in his body on its own and began to devour the thunderbolt power that was drifting in the surrounding void. He didn't guess wrongly. This purple bead was related to the Lightning Emperor. One of the 9 emperors of the human tribe, the Lightning Emperor, had actually been to the immortal world before. End of chapter. Chapter 29-23. This is the Great Path Source Pearl? Xie Wushuang seemed to have thought of something. She could not help but tremble, and her eyes revealed a trace of surprise. What? The Great Path Source Pearl? Everyone revealed an incomparably shocked expression. The Great Path Source Pearl was a pearl formed by the solidification of the Great Path origin in the body of an immortal monarch expert after his death. It contained the power of the Great Path origin. If a celestial prime expert refined the Great Path Source Pearl and comprehended the Great Path origin in it, it was very possible for him to break through to the immortal monarch realm. However, if he directly refined the Great Path Source Pearl, he would only be the weakest immortal monarch even if he broke through to the immortal monarch realm. However, it could allow a celestial prime expert to comprehend the Great Path origin in it and shorten the time needed to break through. It was a supreme treasure. However, the Great Path Source Pearl could only be encountered by chance. Not every fallen immortal monarch could nurture a Great Path Source Pearl in his body. No one expected that Ling Zhao's immortal stone from Mount Amethyst could actually produce a Great Path Source Pearl. This should be a Great Path Source Pearl of the Thunder Principle. It looks very complete. It should have been left behind by a Thunder Principle immortal monarch. Xie Wushuang said slowly. She could not help but take a few more glances at Ling Zhao. She did not expect her premonition to come true. The immortal stone from Mount Purple Light actually produced a treasure, and it was a supreme treasure like the Great Path Source Pearl. Previously, because Ling Zhao's immortal stone had produced a fragment of the divine tripod, she had invited Ling Zhao to Qinyuan's stone shop on a whim. She did not have much hope in her heart, but now it seemed that Ling Zhao's luck was far beyond her imagination. Finding treasures twice in a row could no longer be described as luck. Perhaps Ling Zhao really had something special about him. How is this possible? Young Master Black Cloud's face was extremely ugly, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The Great Path Source Pearl was a treasure that could only be encountered by chance. It was even more precious than Xie Wushuang's supreme defensive fairy weapon and the tricolored immortal lotus fire seed. He had just said that the immortal stone from Mount Purple Light must be a useless stone that could not produce any treasure. However, he did not expect to be slapped in the face so quickly. Young Master, I'm willing to pay 10 million immortal crystals for this Great Path Source Pearl. How about it? A hale and hearty old man with white hair and a beard walked over and smiled warmly at Ling Zhao. The old man's cultivation base was at the immortal venerable realm. Moreover, he also cultivated the Tao of Lightning. His body exuded a vast aura of lightning, majestic and mysterious. Is it Heavenly Thunder Master? Someone exclaimed, recognizing the origin of this old man. Master Heavenly Thunder was a veteran immortal venerable expert. He had been stuck in the immortal venerable realm for countless years and had never broken through to the immortal monarch realm. No one had expected that this Great Path Source Pearl would make Lord Heavenly Thunder lose his patience. I'll take this origin bead of the Great Tao for 15 million celestial crystals. At the same time, an old Taoist wearing a moon-white Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk walked over. He looked like a transcendent being. Taoist Master Yunxiao. He was also a veteran immortal venerable who had come for the Great Tao Origin Pearl. Other than Heavenly Thunder Master and Yunxiao Zhenren who cultivated the Tao of Lightning, there were also other immortal venerables participating in the bidding. All of them wanted this Great Tao Origin Pearl. After all, for immortal venerables, even if they didn't cultivate the Tao of Lightning, they could still comprehend the complete origin of lightning from the great Tao origin pearl and advance to the immortal monarch realm. This was an unbearable temptation for all immortal venerables. The more the crowd chased after the great Tao origin pearl, the uglier young Master Heiyun's expression became. His eyes were surging with cold light and killing intent. He hated Ling Xiao to the core. Everyone, I won't sell this great Tao origin pearl for the time being. It's very useful to me. Ling Xiao cupped his hands and smiled at the crowd. This wasn't some immortal monarch's great Tao origin pearl. It was very likely to be the Thunder Emperor's great Tao origin pearl. How could Ling Xiao sell it to them? Seeing Ling Xiao's resolute expression, the crowd felt a little regretful, but they could only give up. After all, with Xie Wushuang around, they didn't dare to force a sale. The stonecutter of the Shi family also had an ugly expression. It was fine that Xie Wushuang had unearthed 2 treasures, but Ling Xiao had actually unearthed a great Tao origin pearl from a piece of Mount Purple Light Mine. Wasn't this saying that the Shi family was blind? Xie Wushuang isn't here to make trouble today, is she? The stonecutter of the Shi family guessed. I didn't expect the Shi family's Qianyuan stone workshop to unearth a great Tao origin pearl. This is really worthy of celebration. I'll pay 30 million immortal crystals for this great Tao origin pearl. No one is allowed to compete with me. At this moment, a proud laughter rang out in the earth courtyard. It's the 3rd young master of the Shi family, Shi Tianying? Someone exclaimed in surprise. This voice was simply too familiar. In the entire immortal ancient city, almost everyone knew the 3rd young master of the Shi family, Shi Tianying. The crowd parted, and Shi Tianying stepped forward. His expression was arrogant and indifferent. Although there was a smile at the corner of his mouth, he had a haughty attitude. Beside Shi Tianying was the beautiful Shi Qingyi, who looked extraordinary, and a young man who was as gentle as jade and had a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. That must be Fairy Shi Qingyi of the Alcade Immortal Sect, right? It's not just Fairy Qingyi. Do you see that young man? He is the holy son of the Alcade Immortal Sect, Ren Xiaoyao. Ren Xiaoyao? He is known as the King of Heaven's Pride in the immortal world, one of the 10 great immortal masters in the immortal world, Senior Immortal Xiaoyao? Senior Immortal Xiaoyao has come to the immortal ancient city. I'm afraid they are here for the upcoming stone-cutting ceremony, right? Everyone was talking about it, and their attention was attracted by Shi Qingyi and Ren Xiaoyao. Especially Ren Xiaoyao, who was extremely famous in the immortal world. He was as famous as Xie Wushuang and Shi Wuji. Everyone's expression became a little strange. The Xie family and the Shi family were not on good terms. Because of the stone-cutting ceremony, they were at daggers drawn recently. Xie Wushuang came to the Qianyuan stone shop today to make trouble. Now that Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi had come, and even the holy son of the Alcade Immortal Sect, Ren Xiaoyao, there would be a good show to watch. Shi Tianying stepped forward, and his gaze fell on the great path source bead floating in the void. There was a trace of passion in his eyes. As for Ling Xiao, he did not take him seriously at all. He directly stretched out his hand and grabbed the great path source bead. Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold. He directly stretched out his hand in the air, and a vast and majestic devouring power erupted. The great path source bead flew directly back into his palm. Chapter 29-24. At this moment, Shi Tianying didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. He still clawed at Ling Xiao from the air. The cultivation of the Celestial King realm erupted, making this claw seem to be able to tear the void apart. I'm not selling the great path source bead. Get lost. Ling Xiao said faintly and then punched out in the air. Boom. Ling Xiao's fist print was extremely fierce and contained an extremely powerful oppressive force. It collided with Shi Tianying's palm in an instant, and a muffled sound erupted in the void. Ling Xiao didn't move, but Shi Tianying's expression changed. He felt a surge of divine power that could topple mountains and overturn seas, causing his arm to shake violently and make a crisp sound. Crack. Shi Tianying's arm had actually been broken off. Blood splattered, and Shi Tianying's whole body trembled. His qi and blood surged and he staggered back. In the end, Ren Xiaoyao helped him stabilize his body. "How dare you hurt me?" Shi Tianying snapped, and there was a trace of cold killing intent in his eyes. Bush, bush, bush. As his voice sounded, figures with powerful auras rushed over from all directions. Their eyes were indifferent, and their bodies were full of killing intent, enveloping Ling Xiao, Jie Wushuang, and young Master Heiyun. The guards of the Shi family's Qinyuan stone shop were dispatched. Shi Tianying's injury was something that no one had expected. After all, Ling Xiao looked just like an immortal. It was almost impossible for him to seriously injure Shi Tianying, who was in the Celestial King realm. They were afraid that Ling Xiao had hidden his cultivation. "Hurt you? The Great Path Source bead is mine. I said I'm not selling it, so I'm not selling it. Are you going to rob me?" Ling Xiao sneered, and his eyes were full of sarcasm. Surrounded by the experts of the Shi family, he didn't show the slightest fear. With the Great Path Source bead in his hand, he looked very relaxed, giving everyone an unfathomable feeling. "You're a Celestial Prime? I'm sorry. Since you're a Celestial Prime, why are you pretending to be an immortal? Why are you hiding like this? What are your intentions?" Ren Xiaoyao glanced at Ling Xiao indifferently. "It's none of your business." Ling Xiao glanced at Ren Xiaoyao. Arrogant. He was too arrogant. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't expect that Ling Xiao not only injured Shi Tianying, but also looked down on Ren Xiaoyao. Upon hearing Ling Xiao's words, even Ren Xiaoyao's elegant face revealed a trace of coldness. "Shi Tianying, what do you want? Can Qinyuan Stone Shop force people to buy and sell?" The Great Dao Source bead was opened by Lei Ling. It was his freedom to sell it to whomever he wanted. "I advise you to behave yourself. Otherwise, don't blame me for tearing down the Qinyuan Stone Workshop." Xie Wushuang stood up and said indifferently. Although she was extremely beautiful, she was wearing armor and looked valiant. Her words were extremely domineering, as if she did not put the Shi clan in her eyes at all. "Tianying to do it." Shi Tianying Shi was Shi is Ti wanted Tianying to be to fighting to be it of the Qianyuan Qiu Ti Qianyuan of. At this moment, young Master Heiyun's face turned even uglier. He was regarded as Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang's accomplice and was surrounded by the experts of the Shi family. He couldn't leave or stay, so he was in an awkward situation. Ling Xiao was the cause of all this. He wanted to shout that he had nothing to do with Ling Xiao, but he swallowed his words when he glanced at Jie Wushuang. This Lei Ling was simply a jinx. Lei Ling? The name sounded familiar. Young Master Heiyun's eyes showed a trace of doubt. Jie Wushuang and Shi Tianying were at each other's throats again. "Running, stop. You can all leave. Qinyuan Stone Shop is open for business. Everyone is a guest. Miss Wushuang is honored by your presence, so we welcome you." At this moment, Shi Qingyi stopped Shi Tianying and smiled faintly at Xie Wushuang. Her smile was like the spring wind and rain, instantly easing the tense atmosphere. The experts of the Shi family all left under Shi Qingyi's order. "That's right. We're here because of the reputation of the Qinyuan Stone Shop. It's said that there are many treasures in the Qinyuan Stone Shop, so we're here to take a look. Now it seems that it's not bad. It's a surprise that there are supreme-grade defensive fairy weapons, tricolored celestial lotus fire seed, and Great Way Source bead." Jie Wushuang said flatly, but there was a hint of sarcasm in her words. "It's your fortune to be able to find treasures. But Miss Wushuang, the most precious thing in the Qinyuan Stone Shop is the Heaven Yard. The immortal stones in the Earth Yard don't match your status. Why don't I accompany you to the Heaven Yard to play?" Shi Qingyi said with a smile. "How?" "It's simple. Stone gambling. We'll each pick an immortal stone in the Heaven Yard. Whoever has the most valuable treasure in the immortal stone will be the winner. How about that?" "Sure. But how do you want to bet? So what if you lose? So what if you win?" "If you lose, your friend injured my third brother. How about letting him kneel down and kowtow to my third brother and apologize? If you win, the treasures in the two immortal stones will belong to you." "No. I've never used my friends as wagers. Moreover, everyone knows how Shi Tianying was injured." Jie Wushuang shook her head and rejected Shi Qingyi's wager. She was here to gamble, but she had her own principles. She could not use Ling Zhao's dignity as a wager. Are you afraid, Miss Wushuang? Shi Qingyi said with a chuckle. It doesn't matter if I'm afraid or not. This is a matter of principle. I don't have the habit of using my friend's dignity as a wager. If you want to bet, sure. Let's bet big. If you lose, give the Qianyuan stone shop to my Jie family. If we lose, the mysterious yellow stone shop will belong to you. Jie Wushuang said flatly. What? Jie Wushuang's words shocked everyone. Jie Wushuang's wager was too big. She actually wanted to use 2 stone shops as a wager? The mysterious yellow stone shop was one of the Jie family's signature stone shops. It was not inferior to the Qianyuan stone shop. There were many precious immortal stones and immortal jades in it. Once this wager took effect, it would be a huge wager that would shake both the Jie family and the Shi family. No matter who lost a stone shop, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Especially at this critical moment when the stone-cutting ceremony was about to begin, this wager would determine the success or failure of the Jie family and the Shi family. The wager was too big. Shi Qingyi's brows furrowed. She didn't expect Jie Wushuang to make such a big move. Her original intention was to help Shi Tianying vent her anger. But now, if he accepted this bet, it would directly affect the outcome of the stone opening ceremony of the Shi family and the Xian family. Chapter 29-25. What? You don't dare? The Qianyuan stone shop belongs to your Shi family. I'm afraid you are more familiar with the hundreds of fairy stones in the heaven courtyard than anyone else. If you don't dare to bet, get out of the way. I also want to go to the heaven courtyard to see what good things are in the Qianyuan stone shop. Xie Wushuang looked at Shi Qingyi's hesitation and said with a faint smile. Xie Wushuang, you don't have to provoke me. Let's bet. I'm just afraid that when you lose the Xianhuang stone shop, your Xie family won't even be qualified to participate in the stone-cutting ceremony. Shi Qingyi sneered and said with a frosty face. Don't worry, my Xie family won't lose. It's okay to bet. The Xianhuang stone shop of my Xie family is originally under my name. I can make the decision. But can you make the decision about the Qianyuan stone shop? Xie Wushuang said lightly. You. Shi Qingyi was so angry that she flew into a rage out of humiliation, but she was also speechless. Xie Wushuang was right. Xie Wushuang was the genius of the Xie family and was in charge of a lot of resources. The Xianhuang stone shop was in the hands of Xie Wushuang, so she could naturally bet with it. But the Qianyuan stone shop was not under the name of Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying. She can't make the decision, but I can. Xie Wushuang, if you want to bet, then let's bet. If you win, I'll give you the Qianyuan stone shop. So what? At this moment, an indifferent and ethereal voice sounded. Big brother? Shi Tianying was shocked, and her face suddenly showed a look of great surprise. In the distance, a valiant young man in a moon-white robe walked over. He walked with a majestic gait and an extraordinary temperament. However, his face looked dignified and domineering. His entire body exuded a powerful aura. Big brother, you finally came out. Shi Qingyi also breathed a sigh of relief in her heart and said with some excitement. Brother Wuji, long time no see. Ren Xiaoyao's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He cupped his hands and bowed to Shi Wuji. Brother Xiaoyao, I've let you see a joke today. Shi Wuji's eyes were cold and indifferent. It was as if he didn't put anyone else in his eyes except for Xie Wushuang. However, he valued Ren Xiaoyao very much. Not only was Ren Xiaoyao the holy son of the Alcade Immortal Sect, but he was also here on behalf of the Alcade Immortal Sect to discuss an important matter with the Shi clan. Although Shi Wuji was proud and arrogant, he didn't dare to underestimate Ren Xiaoyao. Brother Wuji, what are you saying? Qin Yi is a disciple of my Alcade Immortal School, so our two sects are one family. As a family, let's not talk like strangers. Today, I also want to see Fairy Wushuang's stone dissecting technique. Ren Xiaoyao said with a smile. He looked gentle and refined, but he made it clear that he was on the Shi family's side. Jie Wushuang frowned slightly. She knew very well the purpose of the Alcade Immortal Sect's visit to the immortal ancient city this time. It was to help the Shi family with the stone-cutting ceremony. Although Holy Son Ren Xiaoyao looked elegant and handsome, like an elegant young master, his strength was extremely terrifying. Even Jie Wushuang was a little afraid of him. "Wushuang, you're too impulsive. This is the Qinyuan stone shop. If you bet with the Shi family here, I'm afraid you'll lose more than you win." Young Master Heiyun advised with some concern. "It's okay. It's just a desperate situation. If I win this bet, maybe we still have some hope in the stone-cutting ceremony. But if I lose, then I lose. Moreover, with Lei Ling here, I don't think I'll lose." Jie Wushuang said with a faint smile. "Fairy Wushuang, you trust me so much?" Ling Xiao was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Jie Wushuang to bet on him. "Wushuang, this guy was just lucky to be able to open the Great Dao Soar Speed. He doesn't know stone-cutting technique at all. Do you want him to help you?" Young Master Heiyun's face was a little ugly, and his heart was burning with jealousy. "I don't know why, but my intuition tells me that young Master Lei may be my benefactor," Jie Wushuang said with a faint smile. "Fairy Wushuang, if I lose, won't I become a sinner of the Jie family? Miss Wushuang's stone-cutting technique is extraordinary. It's better for you to do it yourself." Ling Xiao declined. Although he admired Xie Wushuang's decisiveness in his heart, Ling Xiao believed that his relationship with Xie Wushuang had not reached that stage to make him work for the Xie family. "Young Master Lei, you just need to help me pick a fairy stone later. No matter if I win or lose, I won't blame you. Even if I lose, the treasures we cut out from the fairy stone will belong to you. Consider it your reward." Jie Wushuang said sincerely. "I just need to pick a fairy stone? Alright." Ling Xiao thought about it and finally agreed. The fairy stones in the heaven courtyard were ridiculously expensive, and there should be many good things inside. Since Jie Wushuang said that the treasures would belong to him, then he would reluctantly agree. Moreover, Ling Xiao didn't believe that he would lose. In front of the eye of the ruler, nothing could be hidden. The so-called stone gambling was just a joke. "Jie Wushuang, since you and I are stone gambling, then the old rules apply. Each of us will pick 3 fairy stones. In the end, the treasures from the 3 fairy stones will be added up. The one with the highest value wins. In order to prevent anyone from not abiding by the bet, you and I will swear by the primordial spirit and make a heavenly oath. How about that?" Shi Wuji said lightly. "Okay." Jie Wushuang nodded. The Jie family and the Shi family used to gamble on stones often. On one hand, it was to learn from each other. On the other hand, there was also a conflict of interest. They were naturally very familiar with the rules of stone gambling. Under the witness of everyone, Jie Wushuang and Shi Wuji swore by the primordial spirit and made a heavenly oath to make a bet. Jie Wushuang and Shi Wuji were the 2 supreme kings of the immortal ancient city. At this moment, the 2 of them were stone gambling in the heaven courtyard with the mysterious yellow stone workshop and the Qinyuan stone workshop as the stakes. This immediately caused a sensation. The customers in the Qinyuan stone shop rushed towards the sky courtyard one after another. Each of their eyes revealed an incomparably excited and expectant expression. The ultimate stone-cutting competition was a big scene that couldn't be missed. Everyone left the earth courtyard and came to the heaven courtyard of the Qinyuan stone workshop. There were only a few hundred fairy stones in the heaven courtyard. Among them, there were more than a dozen divine jades and immortal fetuses. Each of them was a priceless treasure. These fairy stones had different shapes and were very strange. They bloomed with bright immortal light. Some were like weapons, some were like plants, and some were like beating hearts. They exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. At first glance, one could tell that they were not ordinary objects. The heaven courtyard was rarely open to the public. Those who were qualified to enter the heaven courtyard were either rich or noble. As soon as they came to the heaven courtyard, everyone began to exclaim, "The Jie family deserved to be called a stone-cutting family." Any fairy stone in the heaven courtyard of the Qinyuan stone workshop was enough to be the treasure of the other stone workshops. Chapter 29-26. In the center of the heaven courtyard, there was an incense table with an incense burner and an incense stick. Within 30 minutes, 3 immortal stones had to be selected. After the final stone was cut, the winner would be the one with the highest value of the treasure. Everyone's eyes fell on Xie Wushuang and Shi Wuji, and their eyes were full of expectation. Xie Wushuang, I can give you some time to observe the immortal stones in the heaven courtyard, lest others say that the Shi family took advantage of you. Shi Wuji said faintly. No need, let's get started. Xie Wushuang said. She had been to the heaven courtyard before, so she knew about the immortal stones here. It was difficult to see anything in a short time, so she didn't want to waste more time. In that case, let's get started. Shi Wuji waved his hand, and the incense on the incense table was lit. On the Xie family's side, Xie Wushuang walked towards the immortal stones with young Master Heiyun, Ling Xiao, and sky-devouring rat. Shi Wuji also entered the heaven courtyard with Ren Xiaoyao, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianyi. As for everyone else, they were watching outside the heaven courtyard. Everyone was looking forward to it. This stone gambling was more like a preview of the stone-cutting ceremony. The confrontation between the Xie family and the Shi family was finally put on the table. Everyone was observing the movements of Xie Wushuang and Shi Wuji while talking. The Xie family is obviously at a disadvantage in this stone gambling. I don't understand why Xie Wushuang agreed to this stone gambling. This is the Qianyuan Stone Workshop, the home of the Shi family. The Shi family must be very clear about the immortal stones in the heaven courtyard. Isn't that so? I think Xie Wushuang is too impulsive this time. Although Xie Wushuang is extraordinarily talented and her stone-cutting skills are better than her master's, Shi Wuji's stone-cutting skills are also very strong. If she loses the Qianhuang Stone Workshop this time, the Xie family will definitely lose in the next stone-cutting ceremony. Not necessarily. Even immortals can't see through the immortal stones. The stone-cutting skills only make them have a higher probability of finding treasures than ordinary people. It's not absolute. Maybe Xie Wushuang has something to rely on. I'm really looking forward to it. I wonder who will win in the stone dissecting contest between Xie Wushuang and Shi Wuji? Let's wait and see. Brother Lei, you can just help me pick one out of the 3 immortal stones. Leave the other 2 to me. Xie Wushuang said. Understood. Ling Xiao nodded and said, What about me? Wushuang, give one of them to me. I guarantee that I'll choose a divine immortal stone that will satisfy you. Young Master Heiyun hurriedly said. Young Master Heiyun, take a look around. This battle concerns the life and death of my Jie family. I want to choose the 2 immortal stones myself. Xie Wushuang said seriously. Alright. Young Master Heiyun was extremely depressed. He glanced at Ling Xiao, who had a calm expression, and his heart burned with jealousy. Xie Wushuang would rather believe Ling Xiao than him, which hurt him greatly. Ling Xiao ignored young Master Heiyun and said to the sky-devouring rat, Sky-devouring rat, use your treasure-hunting talent to see if there are any different immortal stones. If there are any, tell me. The sky-devouring rat was an ancient species and was naturally sensitive to treasures. Just like the immortal stone of the Xian Tian Immortal Lord, it was found by the sky-devouring rat. There were a few hundred immortal stones here. It was still difficult to pick the 3 most valuable ones within an incense stick's time. Xie Wushuang didn't place all her bets on Ling Xiao. That was why she had only allowed him to pick an immortal stone. That way, Ling Xiao would have to ensure that the immortal stone he picked was the most precious treasure in the heavenly monastery. Ling Xiao walked casually and passed through the many immortal stones. The Shi family members seemed to have come prepared as they went straight for the Divine Jade Immortal Fetus. Generally speaking, the Divine Jade Immortal Fetus was the best among the immortal stones. It contained boundless vitality and had the highest probability of finding treasures. Moreover, they were all supreme treasures. However, this was not absolute. The Divine Jade Immortal Fetus could also be destroyed. There were also shocking supreme treasures in the immortal stones. What they did not see was that Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with bright light. The power of the sovereign lingered in his eyes, making his eyes incomparably strange. He had the power to see through everything. The outer layer of the immortal stones could no longer block Ling Xiao's prying eyes. The divine Dao and immortal Dao aura spread out, and Ling Xiao saw the scene inside the immortal stones. There are indeed many precious treasures in the heaven courtyard, Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. He found a purple battle saber in the first immortal stone. It was a supreme immortal tool. After that, Ling Xiao also saw mysterious elixirs and powerful weapons in the immortal stones. There was even an ancient jade book with runes on it that recorded mysterious cultivation techniques. However, Ling Xiao's power of the sovereign was not limitless. He could not use it without a limit. Therefore, he also checked selectively. At this moment, Shi Tianying looked at Ling Xiao with some resentment and sent a message to Shi Wuji. Brother, that Lei Ling is a little strange. He found the fragments of the divine cauldron in the Jie family's stone workshop and the great path source pearl in the earth courtyard. Does he also know the stone cutting technique? Stone cutting technique? Other than the Jie family and my Shi family, who else in the divine world dares to say that they know the stone cutting technique? Don't worry, this time they will definitely lose. Shi Wuji said with a sneer. Brother, could it be that you have found the most precious immortal stone? Shi Tianying's eyes lit up and she quickly asked. In the entire heaven courtyard, the most precious immortal stone, or the divine jade immortal fetus, is this. Shi Wuji stopped in front of a divine jade immortal fetus. His gaze fell on the divine jade immortal fetus with a tinge of excitement in his eyes. It was a divine jade immortal fetus that looked like a mountain. It was about 10 feet tall and its surface was gray. However, it emitted a bright divine light and there was a breath of life emanating from it. Brother, what's in it? Shi Qingyi asked curiously. They were all very curious as to why Shi Wuji was so sure that the treasure in this divine jade immortal fetus was the most valuable treasure in the entire heaven courtyard. This divine jade immortal fetus was originally supposed to be in the auction tomorrow. Now that it is here, once it is born, it will shake the entire immortal ancient city. Shi Wuji touched the divine jade immortal fetus that looked like a mountain with a tinge of excitement in his eyes. Could this be the divine jade immortal fetus that sealed the weapon of the Xian Tian celestial lord? Shi Qingyi seemed to have thought of something. She could not help but tremble as she sent a message to Shi Wuji. That's right. It's that piece. The old ancestor has already confirmed that it sealed the weapon of the Xian Tian celestial lord. In the entire heaven courtyard, is there any treasure that can compare to it? Shi Wuji smiled faintly with a tinge of sharpness in his eyes. Chapter 29-27. Master, this is bad. Just as Shi Wuji chose the divine fetus, the anxious voice of heaven-devouring rat entered Ling Xiao's mind. What's going on? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he asked. The divine fetus that Shi Wuji chose is the one that I sold to the Shi family. It might contain the Xian Tian celestial master's weapon. Heaven-devouring rat said with a bitter smile. The weapon of the Xian Tian celestial master? The Xian Tian sword? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he looked at the divine jade fairy fetus. Buzz. Ling Xiao's eyes were covered with a layer of sovereign power. He instantly saw through the stone surface of the divine fetus and saw the inside of the divine fetus. Clang. There were clanging sounds in front of Ling Xiao as sword chi swept across the place. There was indeed an immortal sword inside the divine fetus. It was surrounded by dazzling immortal light and auspicious air. It looked like it was made of neither gold nor jade. It was made of a very special material, but it revealed a trace of extreme emperor's aura. Is this the Xian Tian sword? Ling Xiao's heart jumped. The sword looked very powerful as it flowed with powerful extreme emperor's aura. It looked like an extreme emperor weapon. If Shi Wuji really unearthed an extreme emperor weapon, Jie Wushuang would definitely lose. No, there's something wrong with the sword. Ling Xiao suddenly realized that the sword was actually covered in dense cracks, as though it had been pieced together after being broken. The extreme emperor's aura was seeping out from the cracks. Although it looked extraordinary at the moment, once it was unlocked, there would be a lot of fun. Ling Xiao's expression was a little strange. He wanted to know what Shi Wuji's expression would be when he unearthed the divine immortal stone. However, Ling Xiao was also confused. If the Xian Tian sword was the Xian Tian Celestial Master's sword, how could it be so damaged? Moreover, it was sealed in the divine fetus. Ling Xiao thought of the divine fetus on him. Perhaps he would only know the reason if he unearthed the divine fetus. After Shi Wuji chose the divine jade fetus that contained the profound heaven sword, he felt a lot more relaxed. Soon, he chose 2 more divine jade fetus. After all, although there were a few hundred divine stones in the heaven courtyard, there were only a dozen divine fetus. The chances of treasures appearing in the divine fetus was also higher. Moreover, even Xie Wushuang was pacing back and forth among the dozen divine jades. She carefully examined the divine jades and immortal fetuses, wanting to find valuable treasures. The heaven-devouring rat was extremely anxious. Although it had helped Ling Xiao find a few immortal stones that it felt might have treasures, Ling Xiao still gave up after seeing what was inside. Although the treasures in the immortal stones were not bad, it was still not enough to form an overwhelming advantage. Soon, more than half an incense stick's worth of time had passed. Ling Xiao had also walked through the entire courtyard, but he didn't find any particularly precious treasures among the immortal stones. This is the Qianyuan stone shop, so he naturally has the home advantage. But there aren't any overly precious treasures in the divine immortal stones here. Ling Xiao sighed softly in his heart. Suddenly, Ling Xiao's eyes flashed and fell on a very inconspicuous divine immortal stone. It was called a divine immortal stone, but it was actually a stone table made of divine immortal stone. It looked like a mountain with a divine jade fetus on it. The divine immortal stone was a shelf for the divine jade fetus. But Ling Xiao felt that the divine immortal stone was unusual. Buzz. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. The power of the sovereign lingered in his eyes. In an instant, his eyes were like beams of light that pierced through the surface of the divine immortal stone and saw what was inside. This is... Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat, and a sharp glint appeared in his eyes. After seeing the treasures inside the divine immortal stone, he instantly decided that it was this divine immortal stone. Ling Xiao walked up to the divine jade fetus and picked it up. That's the young man who found the Great Path Source Pearl? He seems to be with Fairy Wushuang. Could he have helped Fairy Wushuang choose this divine jade fetus? Someone asked doubtfully. It's possible. But this divine jade fetus is obviously not as good as the 3 that Shi Wuji chose. Even if there are treasures in it, the chances are not very high. Someone nodded and said. But what happened next made everyone's eyes widen. Ling Xiao didn't even look at the godly jade fairy fetus. Instead, he casually threw the godly jade fairy fetus to the ground and picked up the pedestal. I'd like to ask, does this divine immortal stone count? Ling Xiao asked flatly. Shi Tianying was stunned at first. Then, she laughed loudly and said with a mocking look, Lei Ling, you didn't choose the divine jade fetus but chose this pedestal? Ha! What a joke! Of course it counts. Although this is a pedestal, it's still a divine immortal stone. Since you chose this piece, we have no objections. That's right. If you've really decided, this divine immortal stone will count. Shi Wuji said flatly. At this moment, everyone's eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. Am I seeing things? Could it be that this Lei Ling was an idiot? He didn't want the divine jade fetus but chose a divine immortal stone. And it's the divine immortal stone that's used as the pedestal of the divine jade fetus? Does this guy really think that treasures can be found in this divine immortal stone? I'm dying of laughter. I think it's a big joke that Fairy Wushuang brought this guy here. Looks like the Xie family is going to lose this time. They'll lose because of Lei Ling. Could Lei Ling be a spy from the Shi family? Everyone was in disbelief. They did not expect Ling Xiao to choose such a special divine immortal stone. Brother Lei, are you sure you want to choose this divine immortal stone? Xie Wushuang was also surprised, but she still looked at Ling Xiao seriously and asked, Lei Ling, you're harming Wushuang. What good things can there be in the pedestal of a divine jade fetus? If there were treasures, they would have landed in the hands of the Shi family. Young Master Heiyun sneered. Ling Xiao ignored young Master Heiyun. Instead, he smiled at Xie Wushuang and said, Fairy Wushuang, I'm sure. If you trust me, choose this divine immortal stone. Chapter 29-28. Xie Wushuang took a deep look at Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao's expression was calm and indifferent. She couldn't see anything from Ling Xiao's expression, but she couldn't help but feel a sense of trust in him. All right, I'll take this fairy stone. Xie Wushuang said seriously. Wushuang, do you really believe in Lei Ling? You'll regret it. Young Master Heiyun said in exasperation. But no matter what he said, Xie Wushuang seemed to have steeled her heart to believe in Ling Xiao and finally chose that fairy stone. The time for an incense stick to burn passed quickly. The 3 fairy stones chosen by Shi Wuji were naturally divine jade fairy fetuses. Xie Wushuang chose 2 divine jade fairy fetuses and 1 fairy stone. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. Many of them looked at Ling Xiao with mockery in their eyes. They sighed in their hearts. They were afraid that Xie Wushuang would lose the mysterious yellow stone mill to the Shi family because of Ling Xiao. Xie Wushuang, you and I are both stonecutter. Naturally, we don't need to rely on outsiders. In that case, how about we cut our own stones? Shi Wuji glanced at Xie Wushuang and smiled slightly. He already had victory in his hands. No matter what Xie Wushuang chose, he believed that he would win this time. Moreover, Xie Wushuang actually believed in Ling Xiao and chose a fairy stone as the base of the divine jade fairy fetuses, which filled Shi Wuji with confidence. Sure. Xie Wushuang nodded calmly. Then, do you want to go first or should I? Shi Wuji asked. The guest will follow the host's decision. You go first. Xie Wushuang said. All right. Shi Wuji nodded and didn't decline. He walked over directly. Everyone's gaze fell on Shi Wuji. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. This was the most precious heaven courtyard in the Shi family's Qinyuan stone shop. They naturally believed that the 3 divine jade fairy fetuses that Shi Wuji had chosen would definitely contain precious treasures. They just didn't know what kind of treasures would be born from these 3 divine jade fairy fetuses. Buzz. Shi Wuji stood in the center with his hands behind his back. His figure was handsome and imposing, and he emitted an extraordinary temperament. He had a lofty attitude, as if he was a king looking down on all living things. He stretched out his jade-like hand, and there was a dazzling light flashing in his palm. In an instant, a beam of immortal light bloomed from it, following his palm towards a piece of divine jade immortal fetus. That piece of divine jade immortal fetus trembled slightly, and the outer layer of stone actually fell off rapidly, without damage. Divines and immortal Qi. The immortal Tao and immortal Qi were immortal, and immortal Qi without any. The immortals. In just a few moments, the divine jade immortal fetus shed a few layers of stone and became smaller. Resplendent immortal light began to bloom from it. His T.S. Shi Wuji's speed was more than 10 times faster than that of the Shi family stonecutter. Legend has it that Shi Wuji has surpassed his master. His stonecutter skills have reached the pinnacle of the Shi family, and the ancestors of the Shi family are full of praise for him. It seems that the rumors are not true. With such a strange stonecutter skills, it seems that the Jie family will lose in this stonecutter ceremony. Someone exclaimed. That's right, I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of treasure Shi Wuji will find this time. Could it be a quasi-emperor weapon? Or a quasi-emperor immortal pill? Or it could be an extreme metal. Seeing Shi Wuji's fast stonecutter speed, Jie Wushuang's expression became slightly solemn. The 2 families of stonecutter were families of stonecutter. They both had extraordinary stonecutter skills. Stonecutter was not only a skill to explore heaven and earth, but also a supreme offensive skill. Shi Wuji's stonecutter skills were so high, and his speed was so fast that it was like an art. This also showed that Shiwuji's strength had reached an extremely terrifying level. Shiwuji should be close to the immortal realm, right? Jie Wushuang thought to herself. No one noticed that Ling Zhao's eyes were shining, and there was a layer of strange light over his eyes. That was the eye of the ruler. Under Ling Zhao's eye of the ruler, Shiwuji's stonecutter skills seemed to be slowed down by thousands of times. They became extremely slow and appeared very clearly in Ling Zhao's eyes. Ling Zhao could see that Shiwuji's hands were trembling slightly. In fact, his speed was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to catch. Shiwuji's palms were patting, shaking, cutting and cutting. Every time, they landed accurately on the nodes where the divine Tao and immortal Tao auras intertwined. He quickly separated the two and then peeled off the stone surface. The reason why it was difficult to see through the immortal stone was because the divine Tao and immortal Tao auras were intertwined on the surface of the stone. Without stonecutter skills, forcibly cutting the stone would easily cause a conflict between the divine Tao and immortal Tao auras, which would cause an explosion and completely destroy the immortal stone. Ordinary stonecutter would be very careful during the process of stonecutter. They didn't dare to relax in the slightest, for fear of damaging the immortal stone. However, Shiwuji's stonecutter was like a kind of art. It looked casual, but it was extremely easy for him to break open the stone surface, gradually revealing the things inside. Through Shiwuji's stonecutter skills, Ling Zhao gradually learned the stonecutter skills of the Shi family. So, this is the stonecutter skill. Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat, and there was a hint of understanding in his eyes. The stonecutter skill was a skill to break down the divine Tao and immortal Tao auras. One had to understand the origin of the divine Tao and immortal Tao. From this point of view, it wasn't difficult for Ling Zhao to master the stonecutter skill since he had the divine Tao and immortal Tao. Moreover, under Ling Zhao's abnormal eye of the ruler, Shiwuji's stonecutter skills were completely revealed to Ling Zhao, allowing Ling Zhao to master the stonecutter skill very quickly. If it weren't for the fact that this place wasn't suitable, Ling Zhao would have already tried to cut the stone. "There's a treasure!" someone exclaimed in surprise. Boom! Inside the divine jade fairy fetus, a 5-colored divine glow gushed out, containing the mysterious power of the 5 elements. In an instant, it appeared in front of everyone. The divine jade fairy fetus was completely cut open, revealing the formation inside. It was a piece of metal that emitted 5-colored light. It looked about the size of a fist, but it contained vast and majestic power of the 5 elements. It looked flawless, as if it had formed the most perfect balance. "It's the 5 elements immortal gold," someone said in a trembling voice, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Is it really the 5 elements immortal gold? This is an extreme metal unique to our immortal realm. It's a supreme treasure used to forge immortal emperor weapons. I didn't expect such a treasure to be found." Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. Top. Chapter 29-29. The 5 elements immortal gold looked dazzling and dazzling. It was surrounded by 5-colored divine light, and there was a mysterious origin energy of the great Tao spreading out from it. The 5 elements intertwined with each other, forming the most perfect balance. The dazzling light looked very intoxicating. 5 elements immortal gold? Shiwuji was also a little surprised, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Although he found that there was a treasure in the divine jade fetus, he didn't know what it was. He didn't expect it to be a 5 elements immortal gold. This is really a good fortune. With this 5 elements immortal gold, my natal treasure can finally be perfect. Shiwuji smiled slightly. He felt that he was going to win. Even without the mysterious heavenly sword, he would win with the 5 elements immortal gold. Xie Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly. It was actually a 5 elements immortal gold? The divine jade fetus of the Qinyuan stone shop was indeed extraordinary. It was extremely difficult to extract an extreme Tao metal from the divine jade fetus. In the entire immortal ancient city, The number of extreme Dao metals that had been extracted could be counted on one's fingers. Ha! My Qianyuan stone shop actually extracted a 5 elements immortal gold? Good fellow Wu Ji, come and show it to your granduncle. In the depths of the Qianyuan stone shop, a figure with a terrifying aura suddenly came out, bursting with dazzling light. An old man with white hair and beard flew across the sky and landed beside Shi Wuji in an instant. His eyes were filled with excitement. An immortal monarch expert from the Shi family? Everyone trembled when they felt the origin energy from the old man. They couldn't help but be shocked, and their eyes were filled with awe. This old man was a real immortal monarch expert. The immortal monarch of the Shi family in charge of the Qianyuan stone shop, Shirton. Everyone didn't expect that the birth of the 5 elements immortal gold would alarm immortal monarch Shi of the Shi family. Although immortal monarch Shi came for the 5 elements immortal gold, he probably also wanted to put pressure on Xie Wushuang. Everyone looked at Xie Wushuang with a trace of pity in their eyes. This time, Xie Wushuang was definitely going to lose. Granduncle, look. Shi Wuji smiled and handed the 5 elements immortal gold to immortal monarch Shi and, good lad, not bad at all. I heard that the little girl from your Jejia family is gambling on stones, right? Using Qianyuan stone workshop as a wager, this young man was really daring. With granduncle here, no one dares to behave atrociously in my Qianyuan stone workshop. You can open your stones in peace. Immortal monarch Shiren laughed. Yes. Shi Wuji nodded, then turned around and continued to cut the stones. With the 5 elements immortal metal leading the way, everyone was looking forward to Shi Wuji's results. They wondered what kind of treasures he would find in the next 2 divine jade immortal fetuses. The second divine jade immortal fetus was quickly unearthed as well. To everyone's disappointment, although the second divine jade fetus also revealed a treasure, and it was a supreme-grade immortal weapon, the tip of the spear was broken. It was a damaged supreme-grade immortal weapon. Although it was still powerful and valuable, it was still inferior to the 5 elements immortal gold. However, Shi Wuji did not mind. His gaze landed on the 3rd piece of divine jade, the immortal fetus. The mysterious heaven sword will be born today. Shi Wuji's eyes shone brightly, filled with anticipation. The mysterious heaven sword was famous in the immortal world because of the mysterious heaven immortal monarch. According to the legends, the mysterious heaven immortal monarch was the most promising person to become an immortal emperor. He was extremely powerful and was known as the invincible immortal monarch. He had never been defeated in the immortal world. The mysterious heaven sword, a supreme-grade emperor weapon, shone brightly because of the mysterious heaven immortal monarch. However, due to an unforeseen event, the mysterious heaven immortal monarch died in battle and the mysterious heaven sect was completely destroyed. However, the divine jade immortal fetus that contained the mysterious heaven sword fell into the hands of the Shi clan by chance. It's a pity that the divine jade immortal fetus that contained the body of the mysterious heaven immortal monarch was obtained by Shirtian Daoist. If I could obtain the body of the mysterious heaven immortal monarch, I might be able to obtain the inheritance of the mysterious heaven scripture. I might even have a glimmer of hope to become an immortal emperor in the future. Shi Wuji thought to himself with a trace of regret in his eyes. Although the Shi clan was wantonly searching for Shirtian Daoist was as cunning as a ghost. They had yet to find his whereabouts until now. What Shi Wuji did not know was that Shirtian Daoist was standing obediently beside Ling Xiao. That's right, Shirtian Rat was very obedient at this moment and he was very nervous. He tried his best to restrain his aura and his breathing became extremely stable. He was afraid that the Shi clan would discover something unusual about him. Ever since he entered the Qianyuan stone shop, he was very worried and frightened. However, no one was paying attention to Shirtian Rat at this moment. Everyone's eyes were on Shi Wuji and the last piece of divine jade immortal fetus. They wanted to see what kind of treasure would appear in the last piece of divine jade immortal fetus. Shi Wuji took a deep breath and closed his eyes slightly. When he opened his eyes, there was a trace of dazzling sharpness in his eyes. His hands emitted dazzling immortal light and dazzling runes as they slowly fell towards the divine jade immortal fetus. The divine jade immortal fetus trembled slightly. As Shiwuji broke down the divine Dao aura and immortal Dao aura, the stone layer quickly fell off. However, this time, it seemed to take a long time. Shiwuji was very cautious. Although his speed was still very fast, this piece of divine jade immortal fetus was incomparably huge. It would take a long time to completely open it. However, everyone was very patient. As the stone layer fell off layer by layer, the anticipation in everyone's eyes grew stronger. Master, it's over. If Shiwuji really opens the profound heaven sword, you will definitely lose. Shirtian Rat said with worry and anticipation. His intestines were about to turn green with regret. This piece of divine jade immortal fetus was sold from his hands to the Shir clan for only a few 100,000 immortal crystals. He, Shirtian Daoist, was known as the treasure-seeking rat. He never thought that one day he would fall for this and give away a treasure to someone else. If I had the profound heaven sword, how could it have fallen into the hands of this guy? Even the body of the profound heaven immortal lord was snatched away by him. My life is so bitter. Shirtian Rat's heart was bleeding as he wailed. Profound heaven sword? I'm afraid not. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth curving upwards. Boom. At this moment, a dazzling immortal fetus bloomed from the divine jade immortal fetus, and a sharp aura rose. A mysterious and ancient sword intent instantly broke through the layers of stone layer and appeared before everyone. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, all the experts in the heaven courtyard who used swords as weapons trembled. They felt their swords buzzing and emitting a strange fluctuation as if they were worshipping the King of Swords. What treasure is this? It has such a terrifying sword intent? Someone exclaimed with a trembling voice. Peek. Chapter 2930. Chaotic immortal light shone from the divine jade fairy fetus. The sword will that erupted from it was mighty and eternal, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. The sword will was like the birth of the King of Swords, causing all the swords to tremble and hum uncontrollably. It was as if they were worshipping their king. Before it was fully unlocked, there was already such a terrifying aura. It was even more terrifying than when the 5 elements immortal metal was unlocked. Everyone was shocked and curious, secretly guessing what kind of treasure was inside the divine jade fairy fetus. Could it be a boundary emperor weapon? Someone guessed. A boundary emperor weapon shouldn't be this powerful. Such a powerful sword will, eternal and immortal. It's still so terrifying even after being sealed for billions of years. I'm afraid, someone shook his head. Could it be the legendary extreme emperor weapon? The person who spoke with a trembling voice. If the extreme emperor weapon could be unlocked from the divine jade fairy fetus, not only would Xie Wushuang lose, but the Shi family would also regain their former glory. Rumble. All the stone layers fell off completely. It was as if thunder had exploded. In an instant, a blazing light shot up into the sky, piercing through the heavens and earth. Clang. A sword hum resounded across the sky. An immortal sword that was neither gold nor jade floated in the void from the divine jade fairy fetus. It exuded a mighty and eternal sword will, mysterious and immortal. The immortal sword was extremely bright and dazzling. It flowed with mysterious light as if it could illuminate the heavens. 2 ancient words appeared on the sword. Profound heaven. The profound heaven sword was born. A mighty emperor's aura burst out, causing everyone to tremble. Their eyes were filled with shock. It was really an extreme emperor weapon. They felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Shiwuji had really unlocked an extreme emperor weapon from the divine jade fairy fetus. The profound heaven sword is born. Shiwuji reached out to grab the profound heaven sword. His eyes were filled with excitement. Profound heaven sword? The profound heaven immortal lord's extreme emperor weapon? Someone exclaimed. The profound heaven sword was very famous in the immortal world and was filled with many legends. Because the profound heaven immortal lord defied the heavens, Countless people in the immortal world admired him. They didn't expect the profound heaven sword to be sealed inside a divine jade fetus. We won. With the appearance of the profound heaven sword, who can contend against it? Shi Tianing's eyes were also filled with excitement as she shouted at Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang arrogantly. Xie Wushuang's face instantly turned pale. Profound heaven sword? Looks like he's really going to lose. Xie Wushuang said with a wry smile, a trace of deep exhaustion in his eyes. When the 5 elements immortal metal appeared, although she was shocked, she didn't think she would lose. However, after seeing the profound heaven sword, she didn't have any other thoughts. You lost? That might not be the case. Ling Xiao smiled at Xie Wushuang. Boom. At this moment, Shi Wuji also grabbed the profound heaven sword and a blazing immortal light bloomed. He raised the profound heaven sword and a blazing light beam instantly rushed into the sky. Shi Wuji held the profound heaven sword in his hand and a lofty feeling emerged in his heart. He felt as if he had become an invincible great emperor that could sweep across the heavens and destroy everything. Everyone looked at Shi Wuji with eyes full of awe and respect. The appearance of the profound heaven sword, could it really be a sign that Shi Wuji was going to rise? But at this moment, an incomparably crisp sound rang in everyone's ears. Cracks began to appear on the profound heaven sword in Shi Wuji's hand. Then, like a mirror, it shattered. The smile on Shi Wuji's face froze in an instant and his eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Shi Wuji's body trembled and his face was extremely ugly. His eyes seemed to spit out flames. Everyone's body trembled and their faces revealed an expression as if they had seen a ghost. Some people even rubbed their eyes and carefully looked at the profound heaven sword. The profound heaven sword actually shattered? Everyone looked at each other and felt as if there were 10,000 grassland divine beasts running through their hearts. Originally, everyone thought that the profound heaven sword of the profound heaven immortal lord had really appeared, but now it seemed that the profound heaven sword had shattered in front of their eyes? A flawless extreme Tao Emperor weapon was a priceless treasure. Then how much was a shattered profound heaven sword worth? This is the profound heaven sword. How could the profound heaven sword shatter? Damn it! This is impossible. Shi Wuji's handsome face began to distort. He was not willing to believe the scene before him. He had just raised the profound heaven sword and it had shattered. This was like an incomparably resounding slap to his face. Feeling the strange gazes of the surrounding people, Shi Wuji felt a burning pain on his face and endless anger surged in his heart. However, he did not know who to vent his anger on. Shi Wuji was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. The profound heaven sword actually shattered? Xie Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although she was incomparably shocked and did not understand why the profound heaven sword had shattered, she finally saw a glimmer of hope. Otherwise, if the profound heaven sword was intact, she would not need to open the stone. Even if she did, she would only be humiliating herself. Immortal Lord Shi An's expression was also incomparably solemn. He walked up without a word and carefully examined the fragments of the profound heaven sword. He shook his head and said, "These cracks have long existed. I'm afraid that when the profound heaven immortal lord died, the profound heaven sword also suffered heavy damage. Although it has been sealed for countless years, it is still completely destroyed." Immortal Lord Shi An's words were like a heavy hammer that ruthlessly smashed on Shi Wuji's body. Shi Wuji's body trembled and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He was actually so angry that he vomited blood. Ling Xiao looked at Shi Wuji with some pity. What a pitiful child. Anyone who obtained an extreme Tao Emperor weapon but it turned into scrap metal in the blink of an eye would probably go crazy. The profound heaven sword actually shattered? Heaven-devouring rat also widened his eyes and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Right now, he really didn't know whether to rejoice or feel depressed. Earlier, he thought that selling the divine jade immortal fetus to the Shi clan for only a few 100,000 immortal crystals was a huge loss. But now, it seemed that he had made a huge profit. This stone cutting is really like heaven and hell. Heaven-devouring rat thought to himself. /book_62507/L. Chapter 2931. Immortal Monarch Shur-in, you are an elder of the Shur family. What do you think of the 3 treasures Shur Wuji found? Jie Wushuang walked up and looked at Immortal Monarch Shur-in calmly. Immortal Monarch Shur-in's expression was a bit unsightly, but he still said faintly, the 5 elements immortal metal is valued at 150 million immortal crystals, the immortal spear is valued at 3 million immortal crystals, and the profound heaven sword. Although it's broken, the sword fragment is still an extreme metal and is valued at 30 million immortal crystals. The total is 183 million immortal crystals. Jie Wushuang, if the treasures from your 3 immortal stones exceed this value, then you win. Immortal Monarch Shur-in is indeed fair. Jie Wushuang smiled faintly. That was what she wanted from Immortal Monarch Shur-in. The 5 elements immortal metal was an extreme metal. Although it wasn't very big, it was indeed worth it to be valued at 150 million immortal crystals. The immortal spear was damaged, so 3 million immortal crystals wasn't too high either. As for the profound heaven sword fragment, it was a bit unrealistic. The sword fragment might be worthless to ordinary people, but to immortal monarchs, they might be able to see something from it and integrate it into a new weapon. 30 million immortal crystals wasn't low, but it wasn't high either. Immortal Monarch Shur-in couldn't go back on his word in front of everyone, so he could only pretend to be impartial. Don't be so smug. Jie Wushuang, I don't believe you can find any treasures, Shi Tianning said with some indignation. Jie Wushuang smiled faintly and ignored Shi Tianning. She began to cut the stones. This time, everyone's expression was a bit different. Shi Wuji's stone cutting was full of twists and turns. Everyone originally thought that Shi Wuji would win, but now it seemed that Jie Wushuang might still have a chance of winning. Most importantly, they wanted to see if Jie Wushuang's 3 immortal stones could produce any valuable treasures. Buzz. Jie Wushuang's slender fingers were as white as ivory, and her wrist was as white as snow. As her slender hand fell, the immortal jade fetus trembled slightly and the stone layer began to peel off rapidly. Jie Wushuang's stone-cutting speed wasn't inferior to Shi Wuji's at all, and she was also incomparably relaxed. The first immortal jade fetus was quickly cut open. A mysterious light bloomed, and a rich medicinal fragrance spread out from it, causing the surrounding people to involuntarily tremble. An immortal pill the size of a longan flew out from the divine jade fairy fetus. It emitted a powerful spirituality as if it wanted to break through the void and escape. Jie Wushuang was already prepared. She stretched out her hand in the air and directly grabbed the immortal pill into her palm. Boom! There seemed to be a strange flame rising from the immortal pill, which contained a powerful aura of the origin. It's actually the heaven-burning immortal pill? Someone's eyes flashed, revealing a trace of incomparable surprise. The heaven-burning immortal pill was a quasi-emperor pill. It contained the fire origin energy, which could increase one's comprehension and perception of the fire origin energy. It was incomparably precious. Everyone did not expect that Jie Wushuang's first piece of divine jade immortal fetus would actually open a heaven-burning immortal pill. The sky-burning immortal pill is an ancient immortal pill. The pill formula has long been lost. If this sky-burning immortal pill is auctioned, it can be auctioned for at least 50 million immortal crystals. Someone said slowly. Everyone was also a little excited. Jie Wushuang and Shi Wuji were known as the peerless duo of the immortal ancient city. The battle between the 2 kings of heaven's prides at the pinnacle of stone cutting made everyone incomparably excited. Seeing that Jie Wushuang had opened the sky-burning immortal pill, everyone vaguely sensed that perhaps Jie Wushuang had a chance of winning. Jie Wushuang put away the sky-burning immortal pill and then continued to open the second piece of divine jade fairy fetus. The second piece of divine jade fairy fetus had a very strange shape. It looked like a heart with 7 apertures on it, and at the same time, it spewed out bright immortal light. This was a 7-apertured divine jade fairy fetus, which contained an incomparably majestic vitality. Sure, Wuji originally wanted to choose this piece of divine jade fairy fetus, but in the end, because he could not make up his mind, he hesitated and chose to give up. This piece of divine jade fairy fetus was chosen by Jie Wushuang. As Jie Wushuang opened the stone, more and more vitality gushed out from it, causing the surrounding void to tremble slightly. Could it be that this piece of divine jade fairy fetus is nurturing a powerful creature? Someone said in bewilderment. If this piece of divine jade fairy fetus nurtured a powerful creature, it meant that this piece of divine jade fairy fetus must have been sealed for hundreds of millions of years. It must have absorbed the essence of heaven and earth, the sun and the moon, and must be incomparably terrifying and powerful. Everyone was looking forward to it more and more. In the end, the divine jade fairy fetus was completely opened, and it actually split directly from the middle into two halves. Bright immortal light pervaded the air, and mist rose, looking mysterious and peaceful. In the center of the divine jade fairy fetus, there was actually an egg. The egg was dark gold in color, and there were many strange patterns on it. At this moment, it actually cracked open with a crack. A kitten as white as jade walked out of the egg. It looked very cute. It blinked its big clear eyes, and looked at the people around it, as if it was a little scared. However, when it saw the dark gold eggshell, its eyes suddenly lit up, and it began to eat the eggshell in big bites. After it finished eating the eggshell, the kitten seemed to have grown a size. In the end, it patted its little belly, and actually lay down on the divine jade fairy fetus, and fell asleep directly. This kitten's heart is really big. Everyone thought in their hearts. But what exactly is this little white kitten? This little white kitten has two fleshy horns on its head, and they look like dragon horns. Could it be a mutated dragon? Chinchilla? Someone asked curiously. Chinchilla? Everyone laughed bitterly. However, this little fellow had walked out of the egg, so they couldn't recognize its origin for a moment. A dark gold egg? A little white kitten? It looks so familiar, I think I've seen it somewhere before. The heaven-devouring rat said suspiciously. You recognize it? Ling Xiao asked. I think so. I think I've seen it in an ancient book. I remember now. This is one of the four primordial evils, Tao Wu. The heaven-devouring rat seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly exclaimed. Tao Wu. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. After he came to the demon realm, he gradually understood that the Tao Tai clan of the old goat was not simple. It was actually one of the four primordial evils. The four primordial evils were chaos, Tao Tai, Tao Wu, and Qiongqi. The true chaos was already very rare, and the beasts of chaos in all the realms now mostly had a trace of the chaos bloodline. The old goat and emperor devouring sky were both from the Tao Tai clan. And Gu Daoi's true form was Qiongqi. Ling Xiao didn't expect to see one of the four primordial evils, Tao Wu, in the immortal realm. As one of the four primordial evils, Tao Wu was no weaker than the other three. Its strength was terrifying. When the four primordial evils reached adulthood, they would at least have the strength of an immortal lord. P.S. Fourth update. Everyone, rest early. I haven't updated much these few days, because something happened at home. Muyu has been dealing with it, and it's finally over today. Muyu has 4 days off during the May Day holiday, so I'll make up for it. Everyone, please bear with me. Thank you for your understanding. End of chapter. Chapter 2932. Tao Wu, one of the four beasts of chaos? Immortal monarch Shi An's eyes flashed with a hint of greed. This was a young Tao Wu. It was extremely precious and had endless potential. When it grew to its peak, it would become an invincible deity lord. It even had a glimmer of hope to peek into the supreme god realm. Tao Wu could be said to be one of the best mounts. Deity Lord Shi and did not expect that Jie Wushuang's divine jade fetus could produce such a ferocious beast. It's Tao Wu? It's a top-tier ferocious beast, known as one of the four beasts of chaos. It can fight with the ancestral dragon. Its strength is extremely terrifying. A young Tao Wu is invaluable. Although it's not as valuable as an Apex Emperor weapon, its value is immeasurable. I wonder if Tao Wu is as valuable as the 5 Elements Immortal Metal? It's hard to say. The 5 Elements Immortal Metal is an Apex metal that can be used to forge Apex Emperor weapons. Although Tao Wu has endless potential, it's only a young beast. I'm afraid its value is not as valuable as the 5 Elements Immortal Metal. However, if this young Tao Wu is auctioned, it's worth at least 100 million immortal crystals. Everyone was discussing. They did not expect Jie Wushuang to be able to obtain one of the 4 beasts of chaos, Tao Wu. Tao Wu's young beast? Shi Wuji's face was a little ugly. The young Tao Wu was extremely precious. Now it seemed that the sky-burning immortal pill and the young Tao Wu were close to the value of the 3 treasures he had obtained. Could it be that Jie Wushuang really had a chance to win? Shi Wuji thought of the broken profound heavenly sword and felt extremely unwilling. If the profound heavenly sword was not broken, so what if there was a young Tao Wu? Jie Wushuang would still lose. Damn it! Is this crazy woman really going to win? Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi's faces were also ugly. It seemed that since the profound heavenly sword was broken, everything had gone out of their control. They did not know why it had turned into such a strange situation. This young Tao Wu is worth 100 million immortal crystals. Deity Lord Shi said expressionlessly. It seemed like the sky-burning immortal pill and the young Tao Wu were worth 150 million immortal crystals. After hearing Deity Lord Shi-An's words, Shi Wuji and Shi and Shi Qingyi, 100 million immortal crystals? This old man is really shameless. If the infant Swanni were to be auctioned, its value would definitely not be lower than the 5 Elements Immortal Gold. Even if it was 200 million celestial crystals, I'm afraid there would be people who would want it. The heaven-devouring rat said indignantly. 100 million immortal crystals? Jie Wushuang frowned slightly. This price was still a little low. In her opinion, the infant swan Ni should be worth about the same as the 5 Elements Immortal Gold. However, now that immortal monarch Shi had made it clear that he was biased toward Shi Wuji, she couldn't say anything. After all, the value of such rare and exotic beasts was the most difficult to determine. Those who liked them could pay any price, while those who didn't would find it difficult to sell them for a high price. Fairy Wushuang, don't worry. Continue to cut the stones. Ling Xiao gave Xie Wushuang a reassuring look, indicating for her to continue. Xie Wushuang took a deep breath and nodded. Without looking at immortal monarch Shiren, he walked to the last immortal stone. The sky-burning immortal pill and the baby Swanni are only worth 150 million immortal crystals. Can the last immortal stone contain treasures worth 33 million immortal crystals? It's hard to say. It's just an immortal stone. How can it be so easy to find treasures? Xie Wushuang's stone-cutting technique is already extraordinary, but now it seems that she's going to lose to this kid. Yeah, what a pity. Everyone shook their heads and their eyes were filled with pity. Lei Ling, if you cause Wushuang to lose the dark yellow stone mill, not only will the Xie family not let you off, but I won't let you off either. Young Master Heiyun glared fiercely at Ling Xiao as he threatened. Ignorant. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and didn't even look at young Master Heiyun. This made young Master Heiyun even angrier, and his face was extremely gloomy. At this moment, Xie Wushuang was already standing in front of the immortal stone. Her expression was extremely calm, and she began to cut the stone. Buzz. The immortal stone trembled slightly, and the stone layer peeled off. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Although many people thought that it would be difficult to find any precious treasures in this immortal stone, they couldn't help but look forward to it. Could there really be treasures in this immortal stone? Ling Zhao's expression was very calm. He already knew what was in the immortal stone, and he believed that after the treasure was revealed, it would probably cause a commotion. Boom! When the immortal stone was finally cut open, a dazzling immortal light bloomed from it. From the immortal stone, a jade talisman as white as jade flew out. It exuded an ancient aura, and there were strange runes lingering on it. It looked very strange. What's that? Everyone's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. Xie Wushuang was extremely nervous at the beginning, but when she saw the jade talisman, her body suddenly trembled, and her eyes revealed a look of disbelief. This is the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Xie Wushuang was extremely excited. At the same time, there was a mysterious source energy lingering within the jade talisman. Wisps of Emperor aura spread out, causing the surrounding people to involuntarily tremble. What? It's the Imperial Jade Inheritance? Someone exclaimed in surprise. At this moment, everyone's breathing became hurried, and their eyes were filled with incomparable longing. The Imperial Jade Inheritance. This was the Imperial Jade Inheritance that only immortal monarchs and immortal emperors could leave behind. It was the most precious treasure, because it was very likely to contain the complete inheritance of an immortal monarch, or even an immortal emperor. No one expected Xie Wushuang to be able to cut open the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Fairy Wushuang, with this piece of Imperial Jade Inheritance, I think you'll definitely win. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. When he checked the Imperial Jade Inheritance just now, he immediately made up his mind. The Imperial Jade Inheritance contained a complete Emperor Realm Inheritance, which was more precious than extreme Dao metals, and could even be compared to an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. This was because if the Imperial Jade Inheritance really contained the Great Emperor's inheritance, it would definitely contain Supreme Emperor scriptures and peerless Emperor techniques. This was a supreme treasure that could tempt even immortal monarchs. The Imperial Jade Inheritance? After hearing these words, immortal monarch Shi An's expression changed slightly, and a trace of sharpness flashed in his eyes. Shi Wuji and Shi Tianing's expressions instantly became gloomy. They knew that they would definitely lose this stone gambling. The Imperial Jade Inheritance was incomparably precious. Even if it was only the inheritance of an immortal monarch, its value would not be lower than the 5 elements immortal metal. If it contained the Great Emperor's inheritance, its value would be immeasurable. End of chapter. Chapter 29-33. Thank you, Lei Ling. Xie Wushuang said seriously to Ling Xiao. Her eyes were filled with joy. With the Jade Palace inheritance in hand, there was no doubt about the stone gambling this time. Everyone looked at Ling Xiao in disbelief. They thought that there was no precious treasure in this fairy stone, but they did not expect the most precious treasure to be in this fairy stone. Ling Xiao used the Jade Palace inheritance to help Xie Wushuang win this stone gambling. This also meant that the Qianyuan stone shop was going to change owners. Immortal Lord Shi and Shi Wuji, I don't think I need to say more about the result of this stone gambling. Xie Wushuang looked at Immortal Lord Shi and Shi Wuji and said plainly, "It's your good fortune to have found the Jade Palace inheritance. You won this stone gambling this time." Immortal Lord Shi said expressionlessly, "Xie Wushuang, you have to admit defeat. This Qianyuan stone shop belongs to you." Shi Wuji gritted his teeth and said, although he was unwilling, he and Xie Wushuang had made an oath to the heavenly way, so he could not go back on his words. Moreover, he could not do anything to go back on his words under the watchful eyes of everyone. However, the Qianyuan stone shop, one of the biggest stone shops in the Shi family, contained all kinds of precious fairy stones and fairy jades, but from today onwards, it would belong to Xie Wushuang. Originally, Shi Wuji wanted to use this stone gambling to defeat Xie Wushuang and obtain the Xianhuang stone shop, which would greatly damage the Xie family. But now, all his plans were in vain. The Shi family really kept their promise. Xie Wushuang said plainly, but his voice was extremely harsh in the ears of Shi Wuji and Shi Tianing. They heard a hint of sarcasm. Xie Wushuang, don't be complacent for too long. The Qianyuan stone shop will be with you for the time being. After the stone gambling ceremony, you will return it obediently. Shi Tianing looked at Xie Wushuang angrily and said, "Stone gambling ceremony? It's not too late to say that after the Shi family wins." Xie Wushuang said plainly, "Xie Wushuang, the Qianyuan stone shop belongs to you. The stone gambling is over, but there is one more thing that I hope you won't stop." Immortal monarch Shi glanced at Xie Wushuang expressionlessly. What is it? Xie Wushuang asked doubtfully. Immortal Lord Shi's eyes were filled with wisdom as if he could see through everything. After his gaze swept past Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat, it stopped on the heaven-devouring rat. Shirtian Taoist, I didn't expect that you would dare to come to the immortal ancient city after killing my people. Do you really think that your disguise technique can fool me? Immortal Lord Shi's gaze was extremely sharp as he stared at the heaven-devouring rat and said coldly, What? The heaven-devouring rat's entire body shook, its eyes filled with disbelief. He didn't expect immortal monarch Shi and to recognize him. Damn it, how could immortal monarch Shi and this old bastard recognize him? Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat had used double disguises. Logically speaking, even immortal monarchs should not be able to see through his identity. Ling Xiao's eyes also flashed with sharpness. He was slightly surprised. Immortal Lord Shi actually recognized the heaven-devouring rat. This was something he did not expect. And you are the partner of Shirtian Taoist. You should have a part in killing my people, right? Immortal Lord Shi's gaze fell on Ling Xiao as he said coldly. Immortal Lord Shi's words made everyone look at each other with a strange look in their eyes. The Shi family lost the stone gambling and wanted to use other reasons to make things difficult for them? The name Shirtian Taoist was so familiar. It seemed that the Shi family had been looking for this person. Why was he here? However, everyone understood that Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat were in trouble now that they were targeted by the Shi family. Master, what should we do? How did this old bastard of the Shi family recognize me? We're finished. In the immortal ancient city, I'm afraid we can't escape. The heaven-devouring rat's anxious voice rang in Ling Xiao's mind. Why are you panicking? If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid that when you sold the divine jade immortal fetus to the Shi family, they left some kind of mark on your body. That's why immortal monarch Shi was able to recognize your identity with a single glance. Ling Xiao said faintly. The Shi family is too sinister. They already knew that there was a problem with the divine jade fetus that I sold them. They have sinister intentions and want to use me to find the reincarnation of the profound heaven immortal Lord. Why don't we just run? If we stay here, we'll definitely die. The heaven-devouring rat said in shock and anger. Let's wait and see. Let's see Jie Wushuang's attitude first. Ling Xiao said faintly. Although Ling Xiao was surprised that immortal Lord Shi had exposed the heaven-devouring rat's identity, he didn't care. He had already helped Jie Wushuang win the stone gambling. Jie Wushuang couldn't possibly hand them over to immortal Lord Shi, right? Immortal Lord Shi, what are you doing? These two are my Jie family's distinguished guests, not Shirtian Taoist. Jie Wushuang frowned slightly and said faintly. Jie Wushuang, this is my Shi family's matter. I hope you won't interfere. They killed my Shi family's people and stole our divine jade fetus. Now you'd better come with me. Immortal Lord Shi said indifferently. Immortal Lord Shi, I'll say it again. They are my Jie family's distinguished guests. They can't go with you. Jie Wushuang was extremely tough. She stood in front of Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat. Her eyes were extremely cold as she stared at immortal Lord Shi without backing down. At this moment, young Master Heiyun was looking at Ling Xiao with gloating eyes. He had long disliked Ling Xiao, especially when Ling Xiao had helped Jie Wushuang win the stone gambling and even obtain the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance. This made him extremely jealous. Now that he saw immortal Lord Shi making things difficult for Ling Xiao, he was extremely pleased and had no intention of helping. Jie Wushuang, I don't want to fight with you. But if you insist on protecting these two murderers, don't blame me for being impolite. Immortal Lord Shi said coldly with a trace of cold killing intent in his eyes. Rumble. Immortal Lord Shi's body emitted blazing immortal light as a mighty emperor's aura spread out. He was like a dazzling sun, causing the surrounding people to tremble and their eyes to be filled with respect. Immortal Lord Shi, Lei Ling and his servant are my Jie family's distinguished guests. If you attack them, you will be making an enemy out of my Jie family. Jie Wushuang said calmly. An ancient golden sword appeared in her hand as well as a dazzling immortal light radiated from her body. She stood with the sword in her hand as a vast sword intent rose around her. Facing immortal Lord Shuren, she showed no fear. Her eyes were filled with strong fighting spirit. Jie Wushuang is going against immortal Lord Shi, and for these two people? Who is this Lei Ling? Everyone was extremely shocked and couldn't help but size Ling Xiao up. However, they all felt that Jie Wushuang wasn't a match for immortal Lord Shuren. After all, immortal Lord Shuren had broken through to the immortal Lord realm many years ago. Jie Wushuang was still too young, and the gap between her and immortal Lord Shuren was huge. Even if she was extremely talented, it would be difficult for her to stop immortal Lord Shuren. How dare you capture Lei Ling? Are you tired of living? At this moment, a languid female voice rang out in the void. It contained a myriad of emotions, causing the hearts of those who heard it to flutter. End of chapter. Chapter 29:34. Buzz. The void vibrated slightly, and a strange fluctuation spread out. Celestial music was pleasing to the ear, accompanied by celestial Dao petals falling from the sky. The fragrance made one's heart flutter. Four exceptionally beautiful maids carried a carriage over. The carriage was forged from a type of mysterious immortal gold, releasing resplendent radiance. Light muslin fluttered about, auspicious energy curling about, multicolored light shining in tens of thousands of streaks. A beautiful figure sat cross-legged on the carriage. It was a beautiful woman in her 30s. She was wearing a luxurious long dress. Her skin was as white as jade, and there was a hint of redness in her cheeks. Her figure was incomparably hot, like a fresh pomegranate, and incomparably perfect. She had a delicate face, especially her pair of watery peach blossom eyes. They seemed to contain all kinds of amorous feelings and endless temptation. One look at her and one could not help but be captivated. This was a mature woman. Every frown and smile showed the most perfect side of a woman. Once she appeared, she attracted the attention of all the men. Everyone was captivated and intoxicated by her, and there was a moment of absent-mindedness. However, among these people, only one was not attracted to her. Madame Fuyao, why is she here? Ling Zhao's face looked as if he had seen a ghost, and his expression became extremely ugly. This woman was the wife of the ancient god cult master, Fuyao. Ling Xiao had never imagined that he would meet Madame Fuyao here. He had been careful enough, even coming to the immortal ancient city billions of miles away to avoid the Yunshi Saintess and Madame Fuyao. He had never imagined that he would meet Madame Fuyao here. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. At this moment, Madame Fuyao also saw Ling Xiao. She smiled sweetly at him, and it was as if the world had changed its color. However, Ling Zhao's whole body trembled, and he complained incessantly in his heart. Lei Ling, this bastard, first seduced Madame Fuyao, and then Yunshi Saintess. However, he was discovered by both of them. Lei Ling escaped from the immortal realm when he saw that his plan had been exposed. He did not expect that he would fall into the hands of the Emperor of Kunwu Mountain, and now become Ling Xiao. Although Ling Xiao had used Lei Ling's trick to deceive Yunshi Saintess, he was not confident that he could deceive the shrewd Madame Fuyao. This time, he was in big trouble. Ling Xiao felt his scalp go numb. His mind spun rapidly as he tried to think of a countermeasure. Moreover, Ling Xiao was silently criticizing Lei Ling in his heart. Lei Ling had always thought that Madame Fuyao was only at the immortal reverent stage. However, Lei Ling now discovered that Madame Fuyao's cultivation had actually reached the immortal monarch stage. Moreover, she didn't seem to be at the first heaven of the immortal monarch stage. Lei Ling thought that he was playing with others, but in reality, he was being played in the palm of others' hands. Madame Fuyao? When immortal monarch Shi saw Madame Fuyao, his expression changed. His eyes revealed a deep fear. Who is this? How could there be such a grand display? Those four maids were all experts at the immortal king realm? Someone exclaimed in a low voice, his eyes filled with confusion. Shu, do you want to die? This is Fairy Fu Yao, the wife of the cult master of the ancient god cult. Haven't you heard of her? She is a vicious and merciless person. If you are targeted by her, you will definitely die. Someone beside him tugged at his sleeve and transmitted a message to him. His voice was filled with fear. Fu Yao? I have heard of her. It seems that the cult master of the ancient god cult is in seclusion now. This Madame Fu Yao is in charge of the ancient god cult, right? She is an extremely powerful figure. No wonder immortal monarch Sher and is so fearful of her. Isn't that so? The ancient god cult is extremely powerful. It is ranked first among all the evil sections. It is a superpower that can contend with the 9 immortal sects. Compared to the Sher family and the ancient god cult, the Xie family is nothing. The cult master of the ancient god cult has unfathomable strength. He has been in seclusion for so long. Could it be that he wants to become an immortal emperor? How can it be so easy to become an immortal emperor? Anyway, the ancient god cult strength is unfathomable. It is not something that we can fathom. However, does this Madame Fu Yao know Lei Ling? She actually scolded immortal monarch Sher and for Lei Ling? That's hard to say. Let's just wait and see. Madame Fu Yao's appearance caused a commotion among the crowd. Everyone's eyes were filled with bewilderment. Jie Wushuang frowned slightly. She did not like Madame Fu Yao. However, when she thought of Madame Fu Yao's identity, she remained silent in the end. Moreover, Madame Fu Yao had actually come to help Lei Ling. This made Jie Wushuang even more curious about Lei Ling. Madame Fu Yao, we are honored by your presence. This old man has failed to welcome you. May I know what relationship you have with this boy? This boy killed my Sher family's people and stole my Sher family's items. I hope that Madame can hand him over to this old man for punishment. Immortal monarch Sher cupped his hands towards Madame Fu Yao. Lei Ling is an old friend of mine. I have been looking for him for a long time. Who does your Sher family think you are? How dare you capture my people? Step down. Madame Fu Yao chuckled. In the end, her expression changed abruptly. It was covered with frost, and her expression was incomparably majestic. Even though immortal monarch Sher was an immortal monarch expert, she still berated him without hesitation. Although immortal monarch Sher was incomparably furious and his eyes were surging with flames, he seemed to have thought of something. In the end, he suppressed the anger in his heart and his expression became incomparably calm again. Since Lei Ling is an old friend of Madame Fu Yao, this old man will spare him for now. Madame Fu Yao, we are honored by your presence in the immortal ancient city. I hope that you can come to the Sher family so that our Sher family can play host to you. Immortal monarch Sher smiled at Madame Fu Yao. Everyone was surprised. Immortal monarch Sher had actually endured Madame Fu Yao's berating? Even if the old god cult was stronger than the Sher family, this was the immortal ancient city. Immortal monarch Sher was also the strongest expert of the Sher family. Could there be a reason for him to be so weak and fearful of Madame Fu Yao? Even Sher Tianying, who had the most violent temper, had a face full of indignation. However, at this moment he had actually endured it. Go to your Sher family? Is this a Hongmen banquet? This old man had better stay at the Jie family. On the day of the stone-cutting ceremony, ask that old bastard Sherpajuan to come and pay his respects to this old man. Then all of you can get lost. Madame Fu Yao sneered. Then she waved her hand as if she was driving away flies. Immortal monarch Sher Wuji, Sher Tianying, and Sher Qingyi's faces were ashen. They were incomparably ugly, and their eyes were surging with flames. However, what surprised everyone was that in the face of such humiliation from Madame Fu Yao, the Sher family, who had always been strong and overbearing, had actually chosen to endure it. The reason behind this was very thought-provoking. Let's go! Immortal monarch Sher An's face was extremely gloomy. If he continued to stay, he would only be humiliating himself. He led Sher Wuji and the rest and turned to leave Qinyuan's stone shop. Top. Chapter 2935. As for Qianyuan Stone Workshop, it would belong to Xie Wushuang from today onwards. Lei Ling, settle your matters and come to the Xie family to find me. Don't think of running away, you know my methods. Madame Fu Yao glanced at Lei Ling with a faint smile. Then, the 4 maidservants lifted the carriage and turned to leave. What sin have I committed? Ling Xiao let out a long sigh in his heart. His face was also very ugly. He was afraid that he couldn't run away. Since Lady Fuyao dared to leave, she must have some method to monitor his every move. Could it be that he really had to meet Lady Fuyao? Thinking of Lady Fuyao's methods in Lei Ling's memory, Ling Xiao felt his scalp go numb. Master, what's the relationship between you and Lady Fuyao? She just saved us, but she doesn't seem to have good intentions. Sky-devouring rat looked at Ling Xiao curiously. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Ling Xiao said plainly. Seeing that Ling Xiao was in a bad mood, Sky-devouring rat shrunk his head and didn't dare to continue asking. Lei Ling, although I don't know what your relationship with Lady Fuyao is, I advise you to stay away from her. Xie Wushuang looked deeply at Ling Xiao and said, I understand. Ling Xiao was depressed. He wanted to stay away from Lady Fuyao more than anyone else, but he couldn't shake off Lei Ling's fate of meeting people from the old god cult wherever he went. You're Lei Ling? I finally remember. You're the person wanted by the old god cult. You secretly learned the old god cult's supreme technique and stole our transcendent divine elixir. You've got guts. Let's see how you're going to die this time. Young Master Heiyun sneered and looked at Ling Xiao as though he was looking at a dead man. Then he turned around and left. Secretly learned the old god cult's supreme technique? Stole the transcendent divine elixir from the old god cult? Hearing young Master Heiyun's words, Xie Wushuang and Sky-devouring rat were shocked. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. However, they were puzzled. If Lei Ling was really the old god cult's wanted criminal, why would Lady Fuyao help Ling Xiao? Lei Ling, I'll follow you to meet Lady Fuyao later. If she really wants to kill me, I will plead for you. Xie Wushuang said slowly. Thank you, Fairy Wushuang, but I'll go see Madame alone. Nothing will happen. Ling Xiao forced a smile. Thoughts spun in his mind as he used Lei Ling's memories to find a way to convince Madame Fuyao, but in the end he still failed. Ling Xiao was prepared to meet Madame Fuyao first to see what she wanted. If she really wanted to kill him, then he would have to do it by force. However, Ling Xiao had a feeling that Madame Fuyao wouldn't kill him. Alright. Then be careful. Thanks to you, I was able to win the Qianyuan Stone Shop. According to our agreement, the heaven-burning immortal pill, the baby swan and the imperial jade inheritance are all yours. Of course, the 5 elements immortal metal, the immortal spear, and the fragments of the profound heaven sword that Shi Wuji obtained are also yours. Xie Wushuang nodded and raised her hands. Suddenly, 6 dazzling lights floated in front of Ling Xiao. They were the 6 treasures from the stone gambling. Although Shi Wuji had obtained 3 treasures, according to the rules of the stone gambling in the immortal ancient city, the winner had everything, including the treasures that were obtained. Therefore, Shi Wuji's 3 treasures were left behind. Shi Wuji was probably very distressed now. After all, the 5 elements immortal metal was an extremely rare metal, and now it belonged to Ling Xiao. In that case, I won't be polite. Ling Xiao nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, he put away the 6 treasures. This was what he had agreed to with Xie Wushuang, so naturally he wouldn't be polite. Among the 6 treasures, Ling Xiao valued the imperial jade inheritance and the baby swan the most. The former might contain the complete immortal Dao inheritance, which could allow him to cultivate more immortal Dao secret skills. The latter was one of the 4 chaotic beasts, and its future potential was limitless. Ling Xiao suddenly had a thought. The 6 treasures were kept in the small world in his body, and the divine jade fairy fetus that he had obtained before was also in it. Ling Xiao was surprised to find that the fragment of the mysterious heavenly sword was trembling slightly, as if it had a mysterious connection with the divine jade fairy fetus. Could the woman in the divine jade fairy fetus really be the mysterious heavenly celestial master? Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the people in the heavenly courtyard had all left, leaving only Ling Xiao, Xie Wushuang, and the sky-devouring rat. Fairy Wushuang, I still have a divine jade fairy fetus here. Please help me open it. Ling Xiao waved his sleeve and the divine jade fairy fetus appeared in the heavenly courtyard. This divine jade fairy fetus is not simple. After glancing at the divine jade fairy fetus, Xie Wushuang's expression suddenly became very serious. Although she could not see what was in the divine jade fairy fetus, she could feel that there was an incomparably majestic vitality in the divine jade fairy fetus, which was even more exuberant than the divine jade fairy fetus of the swan Ni cub. Ling Xiao could have opened the stone himself, but after observing Shi Wuji and Xie Wushuang, Ling Xiao understood the key to opening the stone. Moreover, he had the celestial immortal secret skill and the divine secret skill, so it was not difficult for him to cultivate the stone dissecting skill. However, this divine jade fairy fetus was very important. Ling Xiao was afraid that something might go wrong, so he decided to let Xie Wushuang open the stone. Let me try. Xie Wushuang stood in front of the divine jade fairy fetus. She was also very curious about what was in this divine jade fairy fetus to have such exuberant vitality. Buzz. Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Instantly, majestic immortal qi surged and shrouded the entire heavenly courtyard, forming a huge bounded domain. Ling Xiao had a premonition that when the divine jade fairy fetus was opened, there would be a big commotion, so he had arranged it in advance. Let me do it. Xie Wushuang waved her hand. Immediately, an ancient formation disk bloomed with dazzling immortal light. It looked extremely simple and mysterious. It directly activated rays of dazzling light and shrouded the entire heavenly courtyard. This is the Heaven Sealing Formation Disk. It can seal all auras and fluctuations. Even if an Extreme Dao Emperor weapon is born, it can also seal the scene of the Extreme Dao Emperor aura to prevent others from spying on it. Xie Wushuang explained to Ling Xiao. After the Heaven Sealing Formation Disk sealed the heavenly courtyard, Xie Wushuang began to open the stone. As the stone peeled off, dazzling immortal light bloomed and auspicious qi filled the air. The figure inside gradually became clearer. It's a person? When Xie Wushuang saw the human figure in the divine jade fairy fetus, she could not help but tremble and exclaim. Top. Chapter 2936. Xie Wushuang didn't expect there to be a person inside the divine jade fetus, and it looked like a woman. Su, a dream, the WW, Suaming, calm. If a living being could be born from the divine jade fetus, it must be an incomparably powerful ancient expert. Who was this woman? Xie Wushuang was also very curious. As she moved faster and faster, the stone layer kept peeling off, and the divine Dao and immortal Dao auras were separated. The figure inside the divine jade fetus became clearer and clearer. In the end, the divine jade fetus completely shattered. A woman appeared before Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang. She was an otherworldly woman. Her entire body exuded an otherworldly aura, noble and mysterious. She had a stunning face, and her black hair was like a waterfall, falling to her waist. Her skin was as white as ivory and as pure as glass. At this moment, although her eyes were slightly closed, her entire person seemed to be asleep, vivid and lifelike. Boom! After the divine jade fetus completely shattered, a powerful devouring force seemed to come from the woman, and it instantly devoured all the energy inside the divine jade fetus. Is she really the profound heaven immortal lord? Ling Zhao's heart trembled slightly. Light flashed in his hand, and the profound heaven sword fragment appeared in his palm. He wanted to give it a try. The fragment of the mysterious heaven sword began to hum and tremble. The woman's eyes suddenly opened. 2 beams of light shot out from her eyes. They were dazzling and breathtaking like divine lamps. Rumble! The surrounding void began to tremble violently. There seemed to be an incomparably mysterious connection between the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. dazzling immortal light bloomed, and a vast and violent devouring force erupted, surging to the extreme. There were hundreds of divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus in the heaven courtyard, but at this moment, they seemed to be attracted by the woman and instantly flew over. The majestic divine Tao and immortal Tao auras from the divine immortal stones were like rivers flowing into the sea, merging into the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. How could this be? Xie Wushuang's face showed a trace of shock, and she began to be on guard. Ling Xiao also took a few steps back. Although he had expected this to happen, he didn't expect it to be so powerful. The hundreds of divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus, and the majestic energy contained in them were all devoured by the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. Clang! The profound heaven sword fragment violently trembled, and the sound of metal clanging could be heard. As more and more majestic energy surged into the profound heaven sword fragment, it merged into the profound heaven sword fragment, and the fragments actually reformed, forming a new profound heaven sword fragment. The profound heaven sword. That's right, extreme Tao monarch weapons are indestructible, they won't be destroyed so easily. The woman, Wushuang. Is she the immortal lord? Wushuang said, he. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, he didn't stop what was happening, but allowed the woman and the profound heaven sword to devour the majestic energy around them. It was a pity that the precious divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus were completely destroyed, turning into hundreds of useless stones. However, Ling Xiao found that after the energy in the divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus were completely devoured, the woman and the profound heaven sword didn't seem to have completed the final transformation. I'd like to see if you're the immortal lord. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He took out all the immortal crystals and piled them up like a small mountain in the heaven courtyard. Millions of immortal crystals, the immortal qi contained in them, rushed toward the woman and the profound heaven sword in her hand like a torrent. Xie Wushuang also took out all the immortal crystals on her. As the daughter of the Xie clan patriarch and the king of heaven of the Xie clan, even if she didn't bring many immortal crystals this time, she still had tens of millions of them. With so many immortal crystals piled up together, the entire heaven courtyard was about to be filled. However, the woman and the profound heaven sword were like a bottomless pit, constantly devouring the vast and majestic energy around them. However, after tens of millions of immortal crystals were devoured, the woman and the profound heaven sword finally seemed to be full. Clang! The sound of the sword was crisp and pleasing to the ear. At the same time, an ancient and vast sword intent erupted, incomparably swift and fierce. The profound heaven sword exuded a powerful emperor's aura. It was dazzling as if it could penetrate everything. It floated in front of the woman, emitting an intimate and attached fluctuation. In the end, the profound heavenly sword circled around the woman and its powerful emperor aura slowly converged. In the end, it turned into a long sword that was neither metal nor jade. The woman held it in her hand and stood there with the sword in her hand. The powerful aura around the woman slowly converged and soon calmed down. The heaven courtyard now looked like a mess. There was only a pile of useless stones left, and there was no trace of immortal qi. The woman stood in front of Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang. Her eyes were empty, and her face was a little dull. She didn't say a word and was extremely silent. Are you the immortal lord? Ling Xiao looked at the woman and asked softly. The woman was silent. Master Lei Ling, her condition doesn't seem right. It's a little like the soul detachment syndrome. She's like a walking corpse without spiritual intelligence, but she has her own subconscious and weak will. Xie Wushuang frowned and said. She could feel that the woman's body contained an extremely terrifying power. It was the power of the great Tao origin, which meant that the woman's cultivation was at least in the immortal lord realm. However, there was no primordial spirit in her primordial spirit sea of consciousness. There was only a misty soul floating around, sometimes blurry and sometimes clear. Therefore, it wasn't that she didn't want to answer, but that she couldn't answer at all in her current condition. What a strange condition. Ling Xiao was also very surprised. He didn't expect the woman to be so strange when she came out of the divine jade immortal fetus. "Miss, where are you going next?" Ling Xiao asked again. However, the woman still didn't say a word. "Well, it's useless to ask," Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. However, at this moment, the woman moved. She stepped forward and stood behind Ling Xiao with her sword in hand. She acted as if she was Ling Xiao's maid. "Master Lei Ling, she's not going to follow you, is she?" Xie Wushuang was slightly stunned. "Follow me?" Ling Xiao was also a little surprised. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.